welcome to Riga Technical University Open. It's day 3 of the festival, but round 4 is awaiting for us today, and a very exciting one. We have currently 14 leaders, so it's getting more and more tight in the top of the tournament, and I think today's round could be super exciting as well, very promising because it's a single round. After yesterday's double round, I think players got some rest in the morning and they are ready to fight it out today. With the studio again today with you, Grandmaster Kantāns
and Women International Master Anna Kantane. Hello everybody. And as Anna mentioned, should be an exciting day. Hopefully the players are not lazy after hard first 3 rounds, and now they don't want some bigger rest day. But shouldn't be the case. And we'll be mainly focusing on the leaderboards, so top 7 boards on. For all the players who have 100% score right now in the tournament. And if you'll notice some fun, interesting positions, matchups, some lower boards, or somebody will request to take a look at some lower board, then we will also do that.
Absolutely. So let's see the standings after the 3rd round. It is really exciting because look at the first place. Currently, Hongsen Chen from China, starting number 148. That is absolutely incredible. Also, we see U18, so that means he's still a junior player. That is absolutely incredible what he has been doing. Also, at the very last column that you see is the rating gain, 102 points after only 3 rounds. So he is for now crushing it, and actually he has won 2 Grandmasters already here. So, yeah,
we were looking at his game kind of closely in the first round. Stayed up very late on the Monday evening, just following his grind against Kazakowski Valery. And he played really spectacular game. I think just close to perfect one. It felt like that from our perspective. And he hasn't stopped. He hasn't stopped in round 2 and 3 as well.
Yes, absolutely, very impressive, because it wasn't like just tactical, just attack, which was, just happened, but he actually outplayed his opponent slowly, patiently. So he showed an extreme class, very impressive for now. And so he's playing actually on board 7 because the pairings are made according to the ratings, not according to the standings after each round, but it's always according to the ratings, so you'll always see the highest rated player on top. And then second board is Almutayah from India, and the 3rd spot Joseph Kirel, Simon Lamaze on the 4th one, Paini Yan 5th, Paul Velten, and Krishna Ratich. So here we have the pairings, top 7 boards, of course, are our leaders. They're all facing each other. So after today, I think we could even have like around 4, is my guess.
That's a good guess. That's a very good estimate. But of course, this is still very early stage in a tournament. And all the players you see on 2.5 points, they are just tiny bit behind the leaders, and even the players on 2 points in the group could still be fighting for the win in the tournament.
Absolutely. We even see already mentioned Valery Kazakowski on board 25. So he's one of the first players with 2 points. He lost this first round. He was maybe simply unlucky to be paired against a strong Chinese player. So he lost. But afterwards, he won both of his games. And I'm sure he's hungry for more. So very exciting it's getting, because it's not only the strong players. We have 19 Grandmasters participating, but all those upsets and the players with lower ratings also show very good level here. It's really exciting. I think we can jump to the games already then.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start with board number 1. Players are playing already for a while, so the positions are kind of advanced, not anymore in the opening stage.
Which makes it very interesting for us. We'll immediately jump to exciting positions.
And on board 1 we have Teodoro Nicolas, the top seed in the tournament, playing against Lamaze Simon, an international master from France. And yeah, what is happening today is much more calm approach from Teodoro.
As you see, the players weren't even by the board. But there we have our top seed joined us here in the studio.
So what was happening in first 3 rounds? Teodoro was playing an attacking chess, like very aggressive attacking in a fine style, winning all of his games. And here we have already an endgame on the board. Not very clear endgame, not a classical type of endgame. So white is a pawn up, but these extra pawns are double day pawns, so they could also be irrelevant. Could be relevant sometimes, but sometimes could be completely irrelevant as well. Since anyways we can just... The main idea of the pawns are to try sometimes to push them into a queen or to exchange them for something, but when they are doubled pawns on the side of the board, then you can do as much with one as with two of them.
And we can see that black's position is extremely active. Look at the pieces. All of the black's pieces are in the center or very close to it, especially the rooks and the knight, super active, attacking already some targets. Pawn on c3, pawn on f2 is targeted by the knight. It's for now being defended by the bishop on d4. For now, the bishop on d4 is just holding the position. And if I was just like looking at this position very quickly, I would probably choose black. At the first glance, it just feels like they are more active. But yeah, white has the pawn and white has a bishop pair. So if white manages to somehow quickly develop the pieces, maybe bishop c4, king b2, jumping out, then maybe they actually can also have a totally good chances for the win. Or is it a draw? How do you think, Toms?
No, I think white is clearly pushing. An extra pawn, even psychologically, is a big factor. And what is the more important thing is this super powerful bishop on d4. Blocking one of the rooks, cutting the board to both sides, controlling a lot of squares, attacking some pawns, and we always have this unpleasant situation, what to do with the pawn, for example, on g7.
And the problem is we cannot attack this bishop really, so we don't have the pawn that could come to c5 or e5 to attack it because we don't have c&e pawns. Rook doesn't want to be exchanged for the bishop since rook is worth more, and the only piece that could challenge it is the knight, but it is a really long way for the knight to go and somehow around attack this bishop. So probably black should start with something like f6 soon, although it is white to move. Can white even... No, white shouldn't take.
Now, bishop has to defend also on f2, but at some point the pawn on g7 could start to be hanging, and it's a big decision to put pawns on the dark squares, because that means the bishop sometime later in the game could attack them, while if we choose to put them on the light squares, that limits our own bishop. And there are actually some interesting lines, some kind of sharp lines in this position here available. Players chose not to go for it, but some options like this had to be calculated. Taking, rook coming here, then some moves like knight d1 and...
Knight d1 is very funny position where almost all of the pieces, before you play the rook e3, almost all of the pieces are on the first rank, except the bishop on f5. So that looks quite interesting.
Yeah, and we could push the king for a very long walk, but I guess it's feeling quite good on b4 as well.
Yeah, it's hard to go for it, I think, as black, because
perhaps we had some moves like this still, yeah, but...
Still king b4?
King b4, yeah, and... yeah, still, it's very hard to go for such decision because the position has to be balanced, but it has to be calculated because it looks very flashy, very interesting visually to go for these kind of sacrifices.
But probably he was calculating it. It's hard to imagine that not. Since we don't have player with black pieces still by the board, you haven't seen him, but he is also very young. He's actually 18. We were mentioning that currently they're from China. He's 18 years old, and here international master Simon Lamas is also 18, so young player that I think would almost be impossible for the young player not to calculate such line like rook d4, but it's hard to go for it.
Yeah, and probably completely unnecessary as well, since at this moment it's not so easy for white to develop pieces, since bishop c4, which is the most natural developing move, could be met by something like knight d6, and we still don't have any nice squares for the bishop. And if we do choose to go retreat to something like bishop b3, we have to face rook getting in on the second rank, and whenever rooks get active on the second rank, it is very, very unpleasant because they are attacking a lot of pawns, they are cutting off the king in this case, so our rooks cannot get coordinated, start working as a team. And while I don't think white can ever be worse here, it might be just too much to actually try to win this game, which is, I'm sure, the main goal here for Nicolas.
Yeah, interesting. Very, very nice. You know, but I think we should move perhaps to board number 7. I know it's a surprise, not to board number 2, but on board number 7, first of all, we have our leader, Chen Hongsen, who we already mentioned before. He's currently the first one of the 14 leaders, but there are some fireworks on the board already. It just happened, so I think we should take a look. Board number 7, I am Krishna Rohit versus Hongsen Chen. Let's see, I believe those are the players, and we have some crazy tactic just happened. Bishop takes h7. Actually, yesterday we had it possible in a game of Nicolas Teodorou. It is called the Greek gift sacrifice, giving the bishop on h7. Very famous tactic. If you're not familiar with it, then for sure you should. This is one of the most common attacking ideas in chess. So it's Greek gift because you give something, but then you are attacking, and it's kind of like a poisoned bishop. It's not always guaranteeing a win, of course, but it looks very dangerous now for the black king. And question is if white is going for direct attack with knight g5 check, or queen d3 simply attacking the bishop and the king.
Yeah, and actually we see that white is just winning here already, and completely winning according to the evaluation bar. So something has gone terribly wrong here for player with black pieces. Maybe some opening preparation, some trap.
Maybe we can quickly take a look how did it happen, because it could be quite instructive just to see how could we get into such trouble.
So let's briefly take a look.
Okay, this is still very common. c5 is probably not the main move, but one of the normal lines. Here's some captures.
Yeah, so this is a very, very known opening theory, just very classical kind of stuff. So black is quickly developing kingside and castling. White is trying to take center and delaying the development of the kingside a little bit. And now it kind of evens out. But white does have slightly better position thanks to the control in the center. But I think it's still just very close to complete equality, and it should be pretty known position.
I think I've seen some games where white can sometimes even sacrifice a pawn like d5, ed, and e5, and there are some ideas like this. Actually, there was a not such sacrifice, but similar in a moment. So let's see. Basically, the most important thing is that white is controlling the center. White has 2 pawns in the center, and that usually gives you control not only of the center but of the position a little bit. Black will try to counterattack it or like go around, and is hoping that extra pawn on the queen side could matter, especially later in the game, in the potential end game, let's say. But for the time being, the center is giving also some active opportunities, even connected with the kingside attack, as we'll see in the game.
Up till this moment, both players are playing also very, very quickly. So it must be just a known position. And here...
Knight b8 looks super weird.
Knight b8 looks very, very weird.
Is that a mistake?
I guess it is a slight mistake already.
The pawn on a6 was hanging, but it's a move that you never want to make unless you're forced to, right?
Exactly. We just don't feel like it. And knight was... It's important to be defending the b6 pawn, which we already weakened with an a6 move. I already was not a fan of a6 move in this position, and yeah, so knight b8 is the further kind of weakness, and white is just preparing such a tricky move. Rook b3. Look at that.
I really like this move because you know what? It could mean that white simply wants to bring other rook behind this one to b1 and attack this pawn which Tom's just mentioned, but rook on b3 can also suddenly join the game on the other wing, which is one of my favorite attacking ideas as well. Just rook on the third rank, because rooks are sometimes overlooked, and usually we focus on bishops and knights and queens when we attack, especially here when castles are on the same side, but you can actually in a very powerful way use your rook, and rook is such a strong piece. It's 4 or 5 points, so if you can join to the attack, then it can just completely change the evaluation of the position. So it's a very tricky, such a flexible move, because you can do stuff both on the queen side and on the king side. Your opponent still doesn't know. Actually, also the rook is controlling the c3 square that sometimes black could use as some trampoline for their pieces. So I think it was a very nice move.
Yeah, definitely. And now, I guess, trying to attack the weak pawn on a4. It seems kind of logical, although would have preferred to get in quickly the game, at least the last piece that is not working. Okay, but now we are just defending the pawn, nothing fancy. Wow, queen a7. Only after that thought of like 4 minutes. Oh wow, this is very, very anti-positional move. We want pieces to be standing where they are active, where they have potential, and especially the strongest or piece we don't want to be putting on the least active square on the board.
Maybe we can show it where it went actually.
Yeah, it was, yeah, okay.
And this is the a7 square. Look at that, it looks like it was punished for something and sent to the corner. It looks pretty, but maybe he was thinking he's able to set it later on a8, but still then...
Still, we are not really using the potential of the queen. And b6 pawn would be hanging, because so that cannot be really the plan. I guess he was too worried about the pawn on a6. He was not sure how to deal with it. But yeah, that looks...
like knight b8 and queen a7, those are the types of moves that you don't want to make. You only make them if you have like no other choice. You were forced to, and at the moment I don't even... I am not certain if a6 pawn is hanging, because we can capture, and take on e4, because then queen is no longer on e2, so it won't be defending on e4. So this seems to be working. Also, we see the evil bar, it confirms it. So queen a7 is such a... In chess, it's... of course, when you play, it's different, but oftentimes... the game is quite simple, and so if there is such a move that is really unnatural and you can feel it kind of, it is not natural, it might simply mean that this move is bad.
And it looks like that because of this move also white is just able to comfortably launch an attack, because the most powerful piece is out of the game. That means that in case there is some attacking game, in case there is some active game, white is essentially playing queen up, and playing queen up is pretty big deal. So yeah, and now d5, very, very logical, immediately just hitting the center. Very
logical, but also very strong, and this is also a skill to feel the momentum, right? That now you see your opponent's pieces went to the side, and this is a moment to strike.
Yeah, but what's interesting that black player here spent only like 5 minutes on queen a7, and then after d5 fell asleep for a very, very long time. So maybe there was no feeling of this danger. He was not aware of this idea, just discovered.
Maybe attack. He was focusing on e5, you know, or like knight g5, but for some reason, because if you see, d5 pawn is attacked twice and it's only defended once, so perhaps he, you know, sometimes we automatically assume that, oh, my opponent cannot go there because it's defended, and this is actually... on that, a lot of tactics are based that actually it is possible to go under the capture, but if opponent takes, then we have a follow-up. But sometimes, we have to simplify things because in chess there are so many possibilities. This is what makes this game so interesting. So sometimes we just kind of simplify and assume that, okay, this is not possible. I have it under control. I have it defended. Maybe this is what he somehow missed or accidentally assumed, because after d5 black is in huge trouble. The idea is that after capture, what happened in the game, white is opening all of those pieces, especially the bishop from d3 has access to the king. It was blocked by the pawn now, so white is actually happy to get rid of the pawn, even though it was controlling the center, but now it is anymore not about the center, it's about reaching the king.
Yeah, and it's still in this moment. We could retreat with the bishop and try to just wait it out. It looks super ugly, but at least this bishop is not working. At least there is no checkmate immediately.
So this pawn on e4 is there, but after the exchange, and let's maybe see, why is it so bad now? Why is it so bad after bishop takes h7, king takes h7? Is white able to checkmate with knight g5, or is it just gonna be very bad after? Maybe queen d3 is anyways not a bad start.
Queen d3, I don't think it does very much, because if we do take this should be just an equal position always.
And if we go queen g5?
Knight g5?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, then...
And look, suddenly this queen up from a7 is gonna make use of itself. If we go queen h3, then black can move the f-pawn, and it seems white can checkmate on h7, but no, this queen from a7, yeah, there it goes.
Yeah, but in this case, I think knight g5 should be just working. Because
so king g8 now, it's it's not in time because there are still 2 pawns on the 7th rank, so this queen cannot do anything.
And now the rook joins in from b3 from this very clever square, and now it is just an unstoppable checkmate coming.
Yeah, so that means after knight g5, king cannot go passive, but can king go forward.
Yeah, that's probably what they're calculating right now, but it just looks so wrong with the rook still being able to join the game.
Yeah, usually you have queen g4, but I think queen g4 maybe wouldn't have worked as
Yeah, we could lose the rook still on b3, and with 2 pieces it might be not enough to checkmate. I mean, first of all f5, and next move we take the rook, and we have a lot of squares to escape, and not so many attackers anymore. So yeah, it would not be enough this time. But yeah, here, this is in very bad shape standing, and we don't need an immediate checkmate in this kind of position.
So maybe let's show what are the threats. So for example, black goes something like f5, because that, again, like queen is a little bit closer to the action. King has maybe some space.
So then we can jump knight d6 with a discovered attack on the king.
And the problem is that the rook is attacking on g7 as well. So let's say king f7 doesn't work at all because rook takes on g7, king f6.
King f6, yeah, and here we have options.
No, queen b2 maybe even. No, then king e6. Rook e1 maybe could be also a move.
Simple rook e1, yeah, that looks very effective. Again, this is protected. Queen e5 is coming with basically a checkmate in 2 or 3 moves.
Oh, and the bar agrees, so that's good. That's good.
Yeah, that is a very good move. Yeah, but in this position, I have a feeling that even anything like this is also going to be completely winning because we can just go queen b2.
Knight g5. Knight g5 is on the board, by the way, so it has just been played. Not queen d3. Queen d3 was not accurate, but knight g5, that was key. The move order is always so important because you have the right idea. It's not enough. You also have to execute it in a correct move order, and he does just that now. Knight g5, that is the precise move.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he was not just focused on the idea that, okay, bishop h7 is possible, but it's simply gonna be an exchange and that's it. And that He was not aware that all of a sudden there is super dangerous attack coming because of this rook and queen joining the game. And I think this is going to be over in a few moves. I can't see any way how you could complicate things here with black.
Yeah, this knight on b8 and queen on a7 is now so clear how it was just unfortunate a placement, but going back usually in chess is a very big risk. Sometimes it works, sometimes you have to, so you do it. You do what you gotta do, but oftentimes it can backfire. Seems that white has a winning attack, and it's so interesting on this level. I mean, this is one of the strongest open tournaments in Europe, and we see on top board, second time already, a Greek gift sacrifice. Yesterday it was possible, it was actually not played, and it wasn't very difficult, and today we have another case, and I think that just shows that in chess it's very important to always focus on those basics. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to be learning complicated things in chess and all sorts of fancy ideas, fancy methods and tricks, but if you're gonna do well with your basics, you can actually get very far in chess. And so these kind of things, they happen constantly. They really happen constantly. And so this game, I don't think there's much suspense left. And that is very surprising to see from the Hong Sen Chen, because he had three wins against very strong players, and then and after that follows such a, well, I would say very big contrast in this game. You see like the moves knight b8, queen a7, and then not being aware of bishop h7. Like, he's yawning by the board. Maybe he didn't sleep well. Maybe, we don't know when he arrived. Maybe he has a huge jet lag. Like, as if he arrived just before the tournament, around the third day is the time when the biggest jet lag could kick in. So who knows what is the situation like, but very surprising to see it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this is crazy. I agree. And it is not savable, most likely, so...
Not by him. Only his opponent can save him at this point anymore. He will play king g6, and then he's gonna hope for the best. But now it is all in the hands of a player with white pieces.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so should we go back to the top and see board number 2?
Yeah, let's go back to the board number 2. Let's do that. Where we have Joseph Girel, another player from France, playing against Casper Pioron. And the position is, very interesting on the board right now.
Yeah, very interesting bishops. So Joseph Girel is also rather young, 20 years old. So we have a couple of young French players here. We were mentioning there are two brothers also, Cole's brothers, and one of them is 11, and he's one of the best junior players in the world. I think around top 10 in the world in his age category. So yeah, this is not a junior player anymore, but still very young, over 2400, almost 25, probably also hunting a Grandmaster norm here. So let's see how is he doing against the second seed.
So here Kasper has sacrificed the pawn for some activity, and I guess his ideas are a little bit connected with maybe trapping this queen in some certain cases, since the queen doesn't have many squares. The only one is on c5, but could be enough, one square.
He just took on f3 though, so that's surprising. I want to say it's surprising. Now I am not sure. The position is quite unusual. There are you see those bishops for white on the first rank. You don't see that often. Now after white recaptured, the queen is hanging on b5. So one of those bishops attacking the queen, and I don't think white should worry about their queen now. It seems pretty safe on d6. This idea that you mentioned, that black could maybe try to catch it. Maybe it was possible before, but now after this exchange, I guess it's not really there. Black is now going very much for the knight on d5, being a very strong piece. It cannot be attacked by a pawn, and only one bishop could attack it, but black has another knight that could potentially defend it from the bishop attack.
And also, yeah, I think a big point is the bishop on e1, which has 0 moves right now. It's staring down the very strong pawn chain, pawn wall, and if we would try to activate it through d2, that would automatically leave our pawn on d4 undefended. So it means that there is no way how to get the bishop in the game, at least in this moment. Yet we have some nice ways how to improve the other bishop. So first of all, the most natural move looking would be rook c1, I think, just getting the rook on the open file, which I would expect to be answered with one of the rooks going to c8. That is, of course, good question, which rook. And then something like f4 with an idea is maybe to get bishop out on an open diagonal, and maybe sometimes to exchange the doubled pawn with f5 and to strengthen our pawn advantage. Could be an idea. Yet we do have to worry about some tricks in these kind of scenarios. Some tricks like knight e5, knight coming here, queen already opening up on the long diagonal, and
That's true, that's a nice one, and that could work actually. So white now knight f3, knight f4, I guess, is still not winning.
some crazy stuff could happen very quickly here, and I don't know what is going on here.
But it's
Can we just take it?
it's not winning.
We can't get to g2, we can't get to knights to e2, h3, so bishop is completely cutting off any dangerous checks, and I guess black would have to just repeat the position here.
Yeah, oh, that's funny, But yeah, those tricks are in the air, in different scenarios they could work. So I think it's a very interesting sacrifice by Kacper Piorun. And not so often do we see this imbalance that we have 2 knights versus 2 bishops. So it's fun to see, especially if knights will actually be more powerful than bishops. That's always very instructive.
Yeah, and here, like, he has done all the preparation work to make those knights powerful by setting up those pawns against the dark square bishop, and now also a little bit complicating things for the light square bishop because it can't comfortably control this diagonal, as we saw, without allowing knights to activate. So yeah, that is... yeah, it potentially could be a very, very nice fight here, very strategical one. And in the same time also tactical because of the knights.
Yeah, and in chess and chess players in general, they have sometimes very strict opinion about bishops or knights. So it also could be interesting to know for both of them, do they prefer knights or bishops? I guess Kacper prefers knights since he went for it. I think he was the one to force more this position. But yes, some people feel much more comfortable with the bishops, some with the knights. It's a little bit like for regular people, there is this, what do you prefer, dog or a cat? Some people have strong opinions on that as well.
I think that more it is in a Grandmaster level, that we use the exchanges of bishops against knights as a way to complicate the game a little bit, since if we have the same pieces, very often it is more easy to play for our opponent. But in case we manage to force some material imbalance, like in this case we have knight against bishop or 2 knights against 2 bishops, this is the same like already having some strange pawn structure or something, like we have room to outplay our opponent based on something. And I think that this is actually the main factor, especially when playing black pieces with lower rated opponent, why very often you see those lines played where bishops gets exchanged for the knights.
And we see that the white actually didn't choose rook c1 that we mentioned, but immediately running away with the queen from d6. Do you think that...
I think it's actually a very good idea to run away quickly from those discovered knight jumps. Yeah, now he quickly played queen b5. So not waiting for rook d8 and not waiting for the threats on the c-file, he just uses the time that he has, gets the queen away, and if the queens would get exchanged, I think this would seriously improve white's chances in this game, because no longer there will be any tricks along this diagonal, and we have quite an easy way. First of all, we are attacking this knight, and the second of all, we'll be very ready to undermine this strong pawn chain and trying to activate our other bishop. So... yeah, this is very strong, and also like we know that queen is cooperating very nicely with knights, and bishops are very nicely cooperating with the rooks. So that is another thing that it's kind of clever to just try to force the queen exchange right now, being pawn up, being in this kind of material imbalance situation. And I really like this decision by player with white pieces. And I think that yeah, I think that Kasper is not going to be 100% happy at this moment anymore about his position.
So you think black should now try to avoid the queen exchange? Maybe play some the queen a8 to keep the queen still on this diagonal if in the future queen can be looking towards the king?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but we can't escape it. The queen can be hunting us, and we have nowhere to run. And if we do go somewhere like queen b8, this feels already a little bit like forcing things, because it's just not doing anything. We want the queen at least to be active, and if we can't have it active, then maybe better it is to exchange it. And while white queen on a6 is very active, and now after moves like rook c1, maybe we don't have even good squares for the knight any longer. We have to start worrying about a5 pawn. So yeah. Okay, no, this would actually drop maybe to some tactics like knight d4, using the fact that after rook takes c8 there can be knight f3. So rook c1 is not the move here, but maybe then bishop b5, yeah, attacking the knight in a different way, and now looking to collect the pawn on a5. And he did go for queen a7. Queen a7, does it change anything now after queen a6? Maybe he's planning to run away to the other side, like to e7, and to get some ideas with queen f6, attacking on f3 and on d4. Doesn't look so great anyways, because now it's white to move, and white can still carry out the same idea. Probably just bishop b5. Yeah, queen a6 played very quickly.
That's so funny. We have this queen trying to catch another queen. It's like a tag game.
Oh wow, he went queen b8. He did go for queen b8, so he is looking to keep the game as complicated as possible. But I have no idea what is he planning after bishop b5.
So he escaped the queen. Queen b5 theoretically possible as well, but bishop b5 seems to be much stronger.
Is he looking to go for this?
But here it feels like white will be in time to make this position more dynamic. Attacking the pawn on a5, there are d5 breaks possible, so this pawn is not blocked anymore. This is really interesting now. But what happens after queen b5?
I think black at this point is happy for a draw.
Really?
Yeah, I think that something went very, very not according to the plan, and we can't escape the queen exchange in a comfortable way, so we just...
And he clearly doesn't want it, so we have seen it, you know, queen b5 was played, running away to a7, queen a6 was played, running away to b8, and now white with the queen on a6 still could be more ambitious and try to play for the win with bishop b5, but white can also say, look, you're running away from me, I am gonna keep trying to find you.
Perhaps queen d6 would he be playing here? I'm not sure, but maybe this is still... Because this is kind of a reasonable square for the queen, it doesn't block rooks, it defends the knight, defends the pawn on b4, looking sometimes at the d4 square, so maybe queen d6 would be still played.
Okay, so no draw. I don't think Kacper would like a draw, so maybe queen d6. And after queen d6, does white play a3 or...
Yeah, that's a good question. Or we do hunt the queen further with queen c5, although that looks already wrong because we were just looking to escape the rook spin, so I don't think we want to go there. Yeah, a3 looks like a good move. Just undermining this pawn chain and yeah, waiting out a moment, and then maybe we get to develop the rook from a1 without making any moves, and if we could get rook a6, exactly pinning the queen on d6, that could work out very nicely. But the thing about this position is, I think black has... The only chance to win this game for black is to play for tricks at this point. Some knight tricks, something like exactly blundering something like this, and those kind of things is the only way black could win the game. So yeah, I think that something went wrong here. moment ago. Like this position, I think those are some standard ideas on how to sacrifice a pawn. I think this is
maybe bishop f3. Maybe he underestimated the possibilities of white.
maybe.
Especially the endgame idea maybe was missed.
Okay, so here was queen f4 square still, yeah, and so queen b5 was played, and in this moment knight d5, according to the evaluation board, was a mistake already, so just forcing all this idea was wrong, and I guess we just have to bring in the rooks in the game and play a very, very normal game, and yeah, and that's it. So just to use that we still have pressure on d4, we still can take on f3 sometimes, and just to play in a very, very casual way, and this was too forcing, too... and this, yeah, this queen c5, I mean this queen c5, queen b5, that is just super, super powerful idea, and nice find by player with black piece, and he actually went for f4, simply f4, he didn't even go bishop b5. So just potentially opening up this diagonal, blocking any e5 breaks, and we'll maybe play bishop b5 a moment later.
Alright, let's see. Immediately answered also by Kacper, very logical move. Let's see how this develops. We should probably try to see some other game. Probably also makes sense to take a look at the third board, one of the leaderboards, and yeah, we have here two leaders. Again, we have Tomasz Lauruszas. We were following his game very closely yesterday, young Polish player. So probably it is time to take a look at this one, right?
Okay, let's do that. Let's take a look at board number 3. And what do we have going on this board? Lot of moves already in.
Yes, Thomas just sat down. We were looking at the stage and we could see him walking to the board. Yeah, Lithuanian Grandmaster is facing Polish international master Jonasz Baum. It seems that white is having a very comfortable position here, especially the c6 square seems to be an important factor. It is usually when you look at the position, first thing you count material, and second thing, if it's more or less equal, here there is one material imbalance, so white has again knight for the bishop. White doesn't have a dark square bishop, which black has on e7. And next thing that you want to see is pawn structure. If you see some weak pawn or some weak square, like such a hole in the position, and I think c6 square is quite an important factor here in this position.
Yeah, c6 square is very, very important, and it still works for another reason, not only for landing a piece there, but that it makes the pawn on d5 very, very weak. Since we already have two attackers, the third one can join in there very easily, and
the pawn on d5 is weak itself, and it makes also the friend on b7 very passive, right? It blocks the bishop, so bishop on b7 is just quite a bad bishop at the moment, and I think white doesn't mind not having the dark square bishop here. So yes, some knight e5 ideas are in the air, and it seems that the only good thing that black has in this position is the a file, but at the moment it doesn't feel that important.
I guess the last move was bishop e7, so must be the idea that he wants to place here bishop b4 to exchange this bishop for the knight in order to protect the d5 pawn, at least a little bit. But here even some simple moves like queen b3 could be enough, because this exchange is clearly very, very good for white, and if we do play something like queen d6, we could lose the d5 immediately, or we could just be faced with e3 and protecting the d4 pawn and preparing to win the d5 pawn.
Yeah, but white has a very nice pawn structure, and it seems like just a very natural game. Black has to struggle a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think even more than a little bit. It might be that the d5 pawn by the correct play is undefendable at this point. Either knight coming to c6, exchanging the bishop and then winning the pawn, or just immediately piling up on it. Also, probably like the choice right now is some knight e5, queen b3 is a very serious option, stopping bishop b4 in case you don't like this move, and then later playing e3, knight e5 and looking to win the pawn. And so what else would be an option? E3 immediately is an important move as well to consider, because it just defends the d4 pawn, making sure that the position is more easy to play, more solid. It could also help us to make our rook left. If we don't want to move the queen, we have an option rook e2, rook c2, and later on attacking on c7. And the big thing for the black, the big minus is there is zero counter game. There are no weaknesses in white position except the d4 pawn, which we can easily defend with e3. b5 pawn is not attackable. So there are two weaknesses in black's position and zero weaknesses in white's position, and that is
not a dream scenario for black. Yeah, absolutely. That's just even when you sit there by the board, and you don't really have an active plan. You don't really have any target in your opponent's position. It's just unpleasant to play. And you see all those, like Thomas was mentioning, some potential candidate moves from the white side, like e3, knight e5, queen b3, so many different moves that you have to worry about. And you know that your opponent at the moment doesn't really have to worry about anything. So just mentally, psychologically, it is not very pleasant. But actually, Thomas is spending some time. He is on 36 minutes, so we'll see if he is not going to be making those decisions too quickly. Maybe it will become a factor, because we actually have seen yesterday his game, and he was also much better winning, actually. But then in time trouble, there was some, well, not the most precise play, let's say, and his opponent got some chances, but then suddenly he timed out himself. So yeah, in the time trouble, a lot can happen. So yeah, let's see. And we can move to the next board. We have 14 players sharing the first place, so maybe we can just take a look at those 7 top leaderboards.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's take a look at the board 4 right now.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting position. I was looking at this one. I wasn't certain at all what is happening. We have Painian from India, Grandmaster 2547, playing against Hasan Celik from Turkey, 2426. So yeah, the differences are there, but they are not that big. 120 rating points difference.
Yeah, and Celik had actually a very, very fortunate start of the tournament, because in round 2 he did escape position, which according to Engine was already like +4 or more, and
Yes,
managed to
that's
win the
true.
game. And as often it happens, when you manage to turn around such games, you are suddenly on a roll, and now we see him playing on the stage already with 3 out of 3, and I think he's in very, very good shape also in this game.
Just to mention, he is 16 years old, so another young player. It's so difficult to play against them. They are so sharp. They know theory so well, because they are always up to date. They follow a lot of games. They just a lot of them just do chess all the time. They're brief chess, so it can be quite tricky. But his opponent with the white pieces, high-rated Painian from India, I think he's also quite young. Yeah, just to make sure, he's 22 years old. So both of them, I'm sure they're quite sharp. And you say that you like black here, yeah, Toms?
Yeah, actually here the question is there an attack or is white bluffing? Can we just take on b5?
Okay, because black in the previous move before f4, we had knight captured the pawn on a4, I think, right? The pawn was
Yes,
standing
exactly.
there. So black captured this pawn with the knight. The pawn before was there, so it was also defending the knight. Now it's not, so black can also just try to take the knight on b5.
So what happens if we just take it? So f5 immediately I think is very wrong, because bishop c4 and we don't even manage to take the rook. And in this kind of scenario there can be no attack, since rook can just join in. So it's very, very unlikely that we can get with a queen to h6 to actually deliver a checkmate here.
Especially that black has those ideas with queen d2 also to defend.
Yes, indeed, even queen d2 is there. So it means that the idea has to be that after taking, we take with the bishop, takes, and now we play f5. So, do we go bishop c4 simply? Attacking the rook?
I think that is the most logical move, yeah.
f6? Could it be? f6, I guess? I'm trying to understand, like, where is the attack? And now somehow trying to get queen to h6.
So the whole thing is that with the f4 move, with the last move, white says, I'm fine with you taking on b5, but black can just take, and that means black has more material, just more material. And where is the initiative? Where is the compensation for this material?
How are we trying to get there?
But it's so tricky because Hassan Selik, he is facing a strong Grandmaster, 2550. And so you see your opponent playing f4, you kind of believe him, you think, okay, well, he must have prepared something. So where is this something? Toms is trying to find it.
Well, as we see, according to evaluation bar, it doesn't work. Black is completely winning here, and every move that we try, it is remaining with an advantage. But here is something that keeps the position like completely winning, like without any chances for white. And I'm wondering what it is.
So king h8, then, because you see here, right, like just by me, by the board there is this evil bar, and when it's in the middle, then it means the position is equal. But when it drops, so it becomes darker, that means that black is getting more and more advantage. On the other hand, if it's going to go up, then becoming lighter, then it means white is enjoying the position or just having a winning position. So now...
And somewhere around middle is already... if it's somewhere around middle area, then it's already winning. And here that means it's like completely winning kind of situation. But what is the killer move here?
So the idea that white is playing for, that with the pawn on f6, there are weak squares around the king, especially this g7 square. This is where white wants to put the queen. It just wants to deliver checkmate on g7. And how do we react?
Yeah, this is gonna be just a nice position, 2 pieces against rook. So it's not like completely winning, but...
White just wants to go queen h6 now, so we do have... We need something.
Oh, can we just go here? And knight coming to e6?
So that still is winning. And what about, wasn't there something like bishop takes f1 as well? After queen h6, bishop takes g2.
Oh, wow, that is nice.
Yes.
That is nice.
Bar agrees with me, and the idea will be that after king takes, we start to have some checks, but what checks? Queen b2, and we just pick up the f6 pawn, the reason of all the trouble for black. So that is
that is very hard to find. I mean, that is very nice, but that is very hard to find. But yeah, but there are multiple moves. We didn't find a single move which actually would put black in trouble. So yeah, any of the all the logical moves remain with an advantage. So bishop f1, bishop g2 is winning immediately. Knight c5, knight e6 is also winning advantage. So this is, wow, this is crazy. Let's see.
I just checked the time management. This is complete bluff, because player with white pieces, he spent 1 minute on f4.
Okay, he must have had thought about it when giving up on a4.
Maybe, that's true. Unless he... Because look, if we go back, could it be queen g3, bishop b4, they exchanged, and then he took on e5. Maybe he was considering only knight a4 immediately and was not considering rook c5.
Perhaps, yeah, and yeah, but in this position, it's not that bad. I mean, you took on a4, but the game goes on, and nothing's very special is happening. I think we would just play knight d6 or something, and we could get back one of those pawns, and we have 4 against 3 on the king side, or yeah, just.
But he played it so quickly it's hard to imagine that he could calculate. So either he is bluffing or he assumed that really his attack is very strong there, and so he didn't want to waste time, since his time is not also great. But it's quite surprising because rook takes b5. Rook is worth 5 points. But 2 pieces, knight and bishop, it's 3 and 3, so 6 together, so that is winning material. And we were mentioning yesterday that usually in positions where there are still queens on the board, so it's like middle game, 2 pieces are much stronger than the rooks in majority of the cases. So that seems to be just winning if black simply takes, but it's for sure a mental fight, because he sees his opponent. There's a strong grandmaster sitting right there next to him, who just played a 4, who allowed him to take, and now he just has to struggle. I hate such situations myself when I play. I all the time like think, okay, come on, probably he has got something. It's quite difficult, but you have to believe yourself.
Yeah, never believe your opponent. This is like the worst thing you can ever do in chess, just believing your opponent. Never do that. Only trust yourself, your own calculations. And yeah, people do all sorts of crazy stuff, all sorts of crazy mistakes. And unless you perfectly know the person, you perfectly have his tells, you know, like then you can maybe just try to read him. But other than that, yeah, just play your own game. Just trust your instincts, trust your calculations, and just go for the whatever seems correct on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if it's gonna, turn out to be a mistake, it's still better to make a mistake because you trusted yourself, and then you know what to improve, because maybe you miscalculated or maybe you rushed, but you know what you can do in the future to be better. But if you trust your opponent and you make a mistake just based on that, then it is hard to even improve. So let's see, I'm very curious if he is going to take and how this game could continue, but probably we should come back to it later.
Yeah, probably. I think he will take, because it's actually hard to find any other reasonable moves in this position. I mean, you just gotta take, and there are no positions where you are in trouble. Everywhere it's at least okay. So it seems natural just to take it and see what happens later.
Yeah, I will try to keep an eye on this one. Let's just cover 5th and 6th board, because we still haven't seen those today, and we have the leaders playing there as well.
So board 5, actually we have kind of aggressive play happening there between... well, I don't want to say the name wrongly, so I'm going to try to focus. Vidarti, Viom, and against Welt and Paul. So what do we have on the board? The white is dominating on the D file, but black is just trying to stay solid and probably looking to overtake the game in some later stages.
Yeah, it is very interesting because we have those pawns for white. They are very advanced on the king side. It's mainly to get some space, but I wonder, is it really working here, because there are not that many pieces left, and knight could have quite a nice control of the dark squares, but that is if they manage, because the D file is a huge factor. That is the only open file, and white has completely taken over it. So it's a mix of different things. D file, maybe dark squares, the fact that there is knight versus bishop. It feels better for white at the moment, but could this knight start jumping and be a little bit of an issue? How do you think?
I would actually very much not agree that it's better for white, basically only on the factor that bishop here is worse than a knight. Since if you look at all the pawns that we have, they're all on the light squares, and they're gonna stay on the light squares. So that means that we actually have the bad bishop. And the knight has potential, very, very big potential for some secure squares around. So I like the knight here. And I think that player with black is also happy. Like, this is the kind of position you want with lower rated opponent. Safe, risk-free position, trying to outplay. And yeah, these aggressive moves could lead to some weakening of the king. We could even see something like rook c5, rook g5 coming sometimes. Or maybe just the direct question is, what do we do after e5?
Yeah, that is a good question, because e5 also not only attacking the rook, but later e4 is a problem, which is a fork. And also one of the big factors that since bishop is weak, the endgame, after exchanging all the heavy pieces, could be just lost for white.
It could happen, yeah, that it just lost for white, indeed. So how do we react? And probably we have to pin the queen somewhere along the e-file. Use the fact that he can't take.
Maybe queen e3, queen e2. Not better with the queen to make place for the rook? Maybe not, since the evil bar is dropping.
Yeah, this is maybe just simple rook e8, and we still have to solve the same problem of finding a good square for the rook, as we cannot retreat rook d3 anyways, so we can go only rook d6, which feels very, very unnatural square since it is half hanging already, and some moves like e4 could be coming, and all of a sudden so many attacking ideas. Maybe just queen e5, queen f4, attacking the g4 pawn, which now cannot be defended. Like, everything is coming in. Or the same rook c5, rook g5 in this moment, with the bishop on g2, already with the g4 pawn being weak, and with white not being able to do anything because of rook hanging on d6. So, but what changes after rook e2? I guess after rook e2 we will not need to move the rook from d4 just yet, in case the same rook e8 happens. We can play something like queen f5 perhaps, and at least block out the black's piece activity somewhat.
Yeah, but still a lot of game here to go, so it does indeed feel that if there are no immediate issues for black connected with piece activity, then black is strategically a bit better thanks to control of the dark squares and bad bishop. So let's maybe see the next board just to cover all the leaders.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's take a look at board number 6.
So we have International Master Al-Mutayah against International Master Jacob Payekan. I wonder the ratings. 2482 versus 2416. Very close matchup here.
Somewhat unusual position again. Again we see a natural imbalance of knight against the bishop. But
one thing that we have also is a very big imbalance on the clock. 16 minutes against 41. 16 minutes is really quite little, because basically you have like one time to think a bit longer, which in classical chess 5 minutes, 10 minutes is pretty normal, and then you're suddenly already in time trouble.
yeah, and here I think that on the board there are some problems, and that's why the time pressure is also appearing, because it's not easy to figure out what to do with the pieces here for white. I mean, there is a kind of pretty knight on e4, but the problem is that we have two knights, and both of the knights would like to stand on e4, and obviously black is not planning to capture on f5 to solve this problem. And while we do have the knight on d2, we have very big problems with the pawn on d3, and if we do play d4, then this pin could be very, very painful to deal with.
Yeah, so again we see this importance of targets. Black has a clear target, pawn on d3, that's why rook came to d7, other rook is ready to jump to d8 and put already very direct pressure. Knight b3 played, so he is getting ready to meet some attacks on the d3 pawn with his own rook, one or the other, probably the one from f1, because yeah, this one on a1 is already doing a defensive job. So actually it's quite uncomfortable position for white.
Something like b5 could be played maybe sometimes. That was my first idea, kind of in this position, just to stop some of the pawn breaks. But I guess the normal way is to try to figure out what to do about the knight on a6. How could we get it in the game, since that's the piece that's not working at all. since, yeah, we double the rooks on the d file, the rooks are playing, the queen seems to be standing rather reasonably. Bishop on f5 is pretty perfect. Bishop on g7, it's hard to imagine how to improve it right now, but knight from a6 certainly could be improved. So maybe some regrouping ideas somewhere through c7 and e6 or to d5 could be in plans. Yet if we do play knight c7, we have a big problem of knight coming to c5, attacking on b7. So we have to do it in more clever way. Maybe starting with b6, and then with the next move planning to go knight c7, just stopping knight b5. b6 can also help with an idea that we just play c5, not allowing d4 break, and securing the weakness on d3, and just slowly putting pressure. And slowly putting pressure is actually also the best strategy right now to apply with black pieces, because that will make player with white to spend the most amount of time on each decision, and maybe we can force him in the time trouble quickly and still with a lot of pieces on the board.
But now we still have already for like 2, 3 or even 4 minutes, Jakub Pajekan is not there by the board. He has to go back, especially if you want to play against your opponent's time. It is really good to be there to make your move as quickly as you can. You don't have to try to make it as, artificially fast, because the most important thing to do is make a strong move, but at least it's good to be by the board. Hopefully it's going to be back soon. In the meantime, on board number 7, I think we will see a resignation very soon. So maybe before that happens, we can one more time look at this spectacular attack that white is delivering, just to see what crazy, uncomfortable position black queen and king have. I don't know which one is suffering more. So board number 7, let's take a quick look. We have Krishna Rohit against Hong Sen Chen. Hong Sen Chen had an incredible run in the first 3 rounds of the tournament, beating 2 Grandmasters. He is gaining over 100 ELO points, but I guess his run is coming to an end, at least his wins for now. Hopefully he's going to get back after this one, but it seems it cannot be saved today. So yeah, this is board number 7. So if we can see players from the board number 7 and the live board as well.
And yeah, the game actually developed in the manner that we expected it to develop. So f5 was played just like we thought it could be played. And and then it was exactly knight e6, then it was taking the rook and just giving the check with the queen. Not going for anything fancy, just collecting and knowing that with the king in the center, there will be no problems to win the game. And I think we're gonna see it to be the case that queen from a7 will just not manage to join the game at all. It's just gonna stay there, put it there on the side of the board, and white will just go on to play the entire game with the extra queen, and thanks to that, win the game.
I think that could be the case. That's why I think it's worth to just come back, because this is so important. And as we were mentioning one more time, the principles are not followed. The king was left a bit lonely. The pieces were put on some awkward spaces, and white is punishing that kind of play. Now bringing the last piece to the game. This is one of my favorite kind of moves, because sometimes we have those beautiful sacrifices, which happened also in that game, but then the real power is to play with your pieces as with a team. So you just want to bring them all, and an attack is always going to be stronger. So rook e1, that's a check. King has to go to d6, I believe. Nothing really else to do. And where is the finish? Queen b4, I guess, looks great. The poor knight, if it moves, then the queen is always lost. So this...
And if king comes to c7, we can just go for rook d7 and just humanly the most practical way how to finish the game, and just collect the queen, and that's it. And if the king goes to c6, I guess we can just bring over another rook on c1, once again.
From other side, this knight still cannot move, and there are no more squares for the king. King b7, rook takes d7, and after king b8, we will not even be taking the queen. We'll just take queen f8 and give a checkmate, and the queen on a7 is gonna stay there, and we don't even want to take it anymore. It's too bad to be captured.
Yeah, our rook is just better than the queen on a7.
Bishop e4 was played. That covers the king and makes sense, of course.
Is he looking some f3 to manage some b5 checks maybe? But of course, doesn't matter what you do, everything is completely winning. I think I would go as far as to say it is impossible to mess this position up from the white side here.
Okay, I'm not sure, but not on this level, not with this time. Probably we have seen, especially in the Blitz games, stories of that sort.
Blitz games, yes, I guess, but not the classical chess. Yeah.
Yeah, the engine says there is a forced mate here, forced mate in 11. Okay, this is not how human would be approaching this position. You don't really want to find a checkmate in 11, but engine says that there is a forced mate. We don't see the line, so we don't know. We just see the evaluation, and you see the evaluation bar is completely white. What could be the normal way to... I think the hand was reaching for the queen, so I think he's just going to go for like queen b3.
Or okay.
Maybe just queen b3. Because then after... No, still king f6.
Then we can bring the queen closer.
And like step by step, like little staircase.
Just come to d4, and now go f3. Okay, but I mean there is...
Is rook e4 winning?
I think this is more easy winning, just threatening checkmate in 1. And if queen comes sometime over, we just take rook d7.
Queen b3 is on the board, so that's a check. The only way for black to have hopes is go to f6, I believe, because going to d6, they're just going more to the middle, and the rook from e1 can still join once again the fight. So it makes sense to try to reach those squares with the king where minimum amount of pieces from the opponent's side can attack it. So going somewhere where only queen and at least only this one rook could be attacking, I guess just king f6, right, is an option here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is really much to think about. Like, it's just gonna be... like, there are no hopes, doesn't matter. King e5, king e6, f6, everything is all the same. But probably we are gonna see king f6 because at least it attacks the rook, and we're gonna see queen c3 and then king e6 back, and yeah, this maneuver with the queen till d4 I think is gonna happen. And then
we do have also queen c3, king e6 and queen c6 possibility. Then we force the king to e5. Maybe that is some forced checkmate. Bishop cannot take because of the spin, and king going to e7, rook e7. That must be checkmate after queen h6. Where is our first checkmate? There it is, and h3. The pawn is checkmating. That's always really cool. Maybe we can see this on the board. At least to give the pleasure of checkmating with the pawn.
yeah, but I don't think they are gonna play it out though. Queen c6 though, it seems like the move that white player is gonna play. That seems to be just very
look at the player with black pieces. He is struggling, but keeping funny faces at least. Yeah, king is on f6. Queen c3 will be played very quickly, and after king e6, queen c6 could be the last move of this game.
Yeah, that's a very good estimate.
Queen c3 quickly played. Is he gonna resign already now? Let's see. This is still a brilliant performance by Chen Hongsen. He is doing incredibly well. He's only rated 2145 as you see, and he's beaten 2 Grandmasters and 1 FIDE Master. On this game, he's going to lose very little rating. So tomorrow we might see him back. He's going to have white pieces, and who knows, maybe he's gonna strike back. King e6, and let's just see one more move if queen c6 is going to be played, or queen c4. How do you think?
I think queen c6 is going to happen. He's just making sure that he's not blundering the queen there.
What? Queen c4 after all. So queen c4, going for little stairs, bringing the queen closer and closer, and that will be checkmate very soon on the board. So
He's trying to keep it very, very safe, just making sure that, like there is nothing to calculate, that is just easy, straightforward, just collect everything and that's it. So now rook d1 I expect to be played, just threatening checkmate in one, nothing to calculate once again, and then and then we'll just collect the knight, and the mate is unstoppable.
and that means that Krishna Rohit will be the first person with a perfect score after 4 rounds. He could be the first leader, and the big question is who else is going to join him there. We have 14 players at the moment, 7 matchups between those players. Who else is going to win today? Let's see. We already taken a look at all of the leaderboards. Toms, I don't know if you remember. How do you think from those, who could we see winning the game still?
I think Thomas Laurushes is very, very likely to win his game. And I already managed to see that Hassan Selik did not take the knight on b5. So that game is wide open still.
So he believed his opponent. Oh no.
And who did we... And other games were kind of tricky. I think that Jakob Pajeken from Germany had a very good position on board number 6. So up on time and better position. So it is likely that he could win the game as well. And of course the rating favorite Nicolas Teodoro is pushing. The position is very equal, but anything can happen in a different colored bishops plus rook endgame. So yeah, he is, I think, likely also to grind it out.
All right, let's see. Maybe now is a good time to take a short break, and we will come back to cover all the leaderboards and maybe take a look at some of the local players and female players as well, especially on the 10th board, Vantika Agrawal. She is facing a very strong Grandmaster, but I think her position is promising, so maybe we can get back to those games after a short break.
Yeah, see you guys soon. Welcome back to round 4 of Riga Technical University Open A. And now, I've been looking at all the leaderboards, so we'll just jump right into the action because time trouble is approaching. All the decisive moments of the round is there. Some of the games are already kind of in a stage where the result is more or less decided, but the players are gonna still play on and will fight on because maybe some chances maybe still appear. And I think that is also the situation that we have right now on board number 1. Where the tournament leader Nicolas Teodoro is playing against international master Simon Lamaze, and the position has reached rook and different colored bishop endgame, with white having technically an extra pawn, but the pawn being kind of irrelevant in this situation when it's double day pawns and there are not many ways how you can advance with this extra pawn anywhere.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, some of the games have already finished. We had some draws, and the game we have just been following before the break, indeed, white has won it. And for now we don't have any other resultative games, so let's see. But yeah, this board number 1, I think the players that we see now, this is a different board, so let's see if we can see board number 1. But the position is probably just very, very drawish. Different color bishops, they usually tend to have very strong drawish tendencies, and here indeed that is the case. Hard to imagine that on this level something else than a draw is going to happen here.
Yeah, so when we had this material kind of situation yesterday in the game between Kacper Piorun and Stremavicius, that was the pawn structure was all over the place. There were weaknesses, there was what to attack, there was a passed pawn. Here, what we see is that black has two pawns, b7, a6, defending each other, and we could put the bishop on c6 very comfortably. So it would protect the pawn. That means that no white piece can capture it, since white has dark square bishop which can never attack the pawn on b7, and the rook is more valuable than bishop. So it means that we have no way how to get this pawn. And with the pawn structure being as it is, there is no way to kick the bishop out from c6. None of the pawns can attack it. None of the pawns can force it out of there. So to win this game, you would have to create some sort of problems on the king side, but here black is just gonna stand comfortably, not give anything, and any moment when we exchange rooks, it is an automatic draw. So then any theoretical chances to win the game will just disappear on the spot. So I guess the only thing that we can hope for with white is somewhere to advance, let's say, the king to c5 when the bishop is on c6, and then to find some sacrifice where we can sacrifice a rook for an exchange on a pawn, and then get with a king to the a6 pawn, and then using those pawns together with the bishop try to advance it. But that is like literally the only hope, and black would need to go wrong somewhere, seriously wrong, to actually allow it, and I don't think it's gonna happen.
Also, the time situation is very decent for both players. There are no big time troubles, so yes, indeed, it feels like it should be a draw. Some chances, are almost always there in chess, and Nicolas is probably going to try and find them. Maybe those sacrifices, now bishop is actually on c6, so maybe something like this. This is actually how the game yesterday of Kacper Piorun was decided, that he sacrificed his rook for the bishop, and thanks to that he was able to queen his pawn. But this bishop can always run away, it can go away, and the rook probably is not going to manage to catch it. So this is most likely a draw, but we'll see if there are going to be some big changes on the board. We are going to get back here to this position. Other than that, I think we can see board number 2.
Board number 2, yeah, we also have another endgame there. Somewhat more fun, more interesting one, since that is still the clash between two knights against two bishops. But it does feel like bishop should be doing somewhat better there, thanks to the fact that white is a pawn up in that given game. So we left it with the queens on the board, but white did succeed in the hunt to exchange queens. So that was, as we saw, kind of funny goal from the white side, just doing a lot of moves with the sole idea to exchange queens, to actually use the advantage of two bishops against two knights.
And he succeeded, and yeah, this position is a bit better for white due to the fact that, well, they have an extra pawn. So similar cases, if there is no pawn extra, then black could be enjoying, because white has the isolated pawn on d4, and that often is a weakness in the endgame. But here it's a bit different because, well, the pawn is there. White has this extra pawn. For now, maybe it feels it is irrelevant, but sometimes some pushes of the pawn, some exchanges, and the pawn is actually on the board. So yeah, white has this bishop pair. They could open up, and for now white is enjoying slight advantage. Even we see on the bar, it is something there for white. I guess b3 has just been pushed by Kacper Piorun.
So yeah, I wanted to mention that the pawn on b4 is actually a weakness, and so it's natural to also try to remove it from b4. But it comes with it's a very responsible move, since now we have no knights that can defend the pawn. That
Yeah.
means that whenever we will manage to attack it, rook will have to join the defense. And another factor that now changes, that was not before the case, we have actually moves with the bishop. We had 0 moves with the bishop for the most of the game, and now we have a square. It could join the game.
We have a square. Wow, that's that's nice. Yeah, b3 could also be a weakness. Tom's mentioned that pawn on b4 was probably a weakness, but on b3 it can be as well. One thing that the pawn is doing, and it's often the case in endgames, that you push your pawn further, you get some space, and for example, rook c2, sometimes it's possible because pawn is controlling the c2 square, but for it to really be possible and a strong continuation, something would have to change, because in this case, for now, just gonna be captured, and then this pawn, even though it's gonna jump from b3 to c2, almost to the promotion square, but it will be stopped and captured. So for now, it doesn't feel like a big problem for white. And how do you think, if white indeed has an advantage, how can white be pushing here?
Yeah, I think that actually black is in very big trouble here. It's not only like just advantage, and this b3 pawn should be a target. I think we just have to improve the pieces. King d3 would be, I think, a very natural move, controlling c2, and sometimes being just there already with a king for the picking up the pawn. So that's a big question. How do we play here with the black further? What kind of exchanges do we allow? What kind of exchanges we don't allow? Because we are always just there on the risk of actually being in an endgame 2 pawns down.
Mm-hmm.
And an endgame 2 pawns down most of the times are lost. So we have to find something very, very concrete, some compensation, some attacks, some tricks to fight it.
And he did bring his king to d3, and this is a very nice move, because it could feel that, oh, why do I need my king on d3? It's anyways cut now by the rook, and oftentimes less experienced players, they have difficulty understanding why is that an improvement if the king cannot go there anyway. But the more your pieces are advanced, the more active they are, the bigger issue does your opponent have with holding it all together. So now the rook on c8, it has to be there basically, so that king wouldn't be going closer to the b3 pawn. So even though it's not possible now, all those threats and possibilities of advancing even further are now hanging in the air. And this is how you improve, this is how you apply more and more pressure, and finally the position can somewhere break.
I wonder if knight c6 is a move here to cause some, at least to ask some questions to white.
Maybe rook c4, because knights were looking at the b4 square, so sometimes the knight jump could be annoying. Rook on c4 now coming, actually maybe white is simply going to go rook c1 as well at some point. There are some unpleasant pins as well.
Yeah, rook c4 looks very, very strong. Yeah, completely neutralizes all the ideas that knight c6 could have. And in that case, indeed, knight c6 is probably not a move to play. But why I didn't like move like knight d5 is that it allows something, maybe on d5, some captures. Maybe even immediately we capture on d5. And the problem is that we are not able to take with a rook on d5. If we do go for something like rook c1, could simply go for some lines like this, and now the pawn on b3 is super weak. Even maybe there's something more concrete than this, but we could just go rook to c4, bishop to c3, rook to b4, and rook takes b3. And as I mentioned before, 2 pawns up usually is a winning position. So if we pick up the second one, we have a bishop against the knight, still an endgame, and yeah, the knight is not doing anything fantastic, so it should be a winning advantage.
Rook b8 played, so Kacper is already preparing that the pawn on b3 is going to be attacked. Well, that makes a lot of sense. But it does let go the c file, so it feels like second seed of the tournament, Kacper Piorun is just in a full defensive mode. Now the question is he going to manage to save this position?
Yeah, I like rook b8 from the practical chances perspective to actually withstand it here, because on the defensive side we want more pieces here on the board. The more pieces are exchanged, the better it is for white, because the king is active. So the king is an extra piece for attacking everything, and king can't advance too far while there are many pieces on the board. So black is now keeping more material on the board, in this way restricting white's pieces and thus reducing the white's material advantage on the at
F6
f6.
played
Wow.
very quickly. I think Casper also wants to push on time a little bit. So Joseph has 14 minutes. And when you know you have a bad position, but you know also time is a factor. Time is a factor. Oftentimes people say in chess, oh, I blundered, but it's only because I was in time trouble. But yeah, it often happens, and your opponent can use it against you, that you are a bit lower on time. So f6 is just trying to be solid, making some space for the king. Maybe king f7 is going to be played. Maybe just a waiting move in a way. Not sure if that's going to be a problem, that now e6 pawn is not defended by the pawn. It doesn't feel like at the moment it can be used. So yeah, he just went for it. Rook a1 answered very quickly. King f7, was it?
Rook d7.
Rook d7 played.
Not allowing rook coming to the 7th rank. But yeah, I mean, look at that. We have two open files and both are in the property of white. And we have bishops. We have a weakness here. We have a weakness here. This looks horrible. This looks very, very horrible for black already.
Do you think f6 was a good move, or was it a weakening the e6 pawn? Because now rook a6 sometimes can come. Bishop h3, e6 pawn could be targeted sometimes.
Yeah, I think that was it was rushed. It was rushed. It's a hard position to try to hold, but I think that unless your idea is sometimes e5, which would just exchange the double def pawn, and I don't think that's is the idea because of this reason, then I don't think we have to play f6. The king was safe on f8. We didn't need any more squares, and yeah, any new target can just mean that you get more tangled up. And
yeah, this is often like a gift for the opponent. If you create your own weakness, like here, the pawn on e6, usually the pawn that cannot be defended by another pawn is very likely a weakness, because yeah, especially if there is access of the opponent's pieces. And rook on a6, we have it on the board, so it actually attacked this pawn we were talking about. King f7 defends it, but there are other ways to apply pressure on this pawn, and most likely it was not necessary to give this opportunity at all to white. That makes the defense for Kacper Piorun a little bit more difficult. But he is a class player, though. He's a class player. He is from Poland. I know him well. We will start going together for the World and European Championships as junior players, even though Kacper is a few years older. And he has always been super strong since the young age. So I do believe that he can somehow manage that. But I think if white stays solid, it will be very, very difficult, or maybe even impossible.
yeah, like now bishop h3 is of course a serious move to consider, but we could also before that bring in some reinforcements. Bishop from e1, which was not working at all, now coming to a5, blocking any sort of knight a6, knight b6, rook b6 moves, making sure that rooks don't have anything to do, and then just again looking to attack a move later. And it's always the question, what do we do actually here with black? Like,
and this is very nice move, because again, it seems that bishop is not doing anything there, but it takes away the squares from the opponent. Bishop d2 played instead. Still, important thing is not to go too low on time if you want to win. Bishop
d2 is also an improving move, certainly. So could be, yeah, the same idea. Okay, maybe rook b6 or knight b6 is not important, because then would follow rook b4, so bishop on a5 is just not necessary, and we are just keeping the position more together and preparing for some advances. Maybe sometimes it's important that the f4 pawn is protected, so let's say if we want to play bishop h3 to attack on e6, and if opponent plays knight f5, now we have a g4 as an option, because knight is not attacking the f4 pawn, and g4, g5 could come, or g4, f5, just to break it all open.
Yeah, and it's just hitting the ball back to the opponent, you know. You just hit the ball back and ask, okay, and what are you gonna do now after the bishop d2? Not every single move when you realize the advantage in this type of position that is not tactical, not every single move has to have a very deep idea, right? It just sometimes about making very, very small, seemingly moves that don't even affect the position that much, but sometimes it's just about asking the opponent how are you going to react, keeping the time also under control. So very, very difficult defense here awaits Kacper Piorun on the second board, and I guess we could jump to the next one and see how are other players doing. It's already 3 hours into the game. Local time it is already 6 in the evening. So very soon, very serious time trouble will also be there for all of the players that still continue their games. So let's try to catch some glimpse of those games before it happens.
Yeah, so I think we can take a look at board 3 and then later on move to board 4. So let's take a look how Tomáš Larušas is trying to squeeze out his advantage still against Jonas Baum. So board 3, we left it with Tomáš Larušas having a clear advantage, clear targets what to attack, and I don't think he has let it slip. He is just building up on it. Step by step building up on it. The bishop got exchanged for knight, so no longer black has the advantage of 2 bishops, and then he is doing the strategy that is very, very often applied when you have just a strategically better position. You're exchanging pieces under your terms. You're choosing what you want to leave on the board and exchanging other pieces and just looking to collect pawns or collect something, just some squares, some weaknesses, whatever is in any given position. In this case, that is the pawn on d5 and on c7 that he's looking to get. So black can take right now on b5.
I agree with you. In terms of position, I really like what he's doing. I do not like his time management though. He's down to 3 minutes. I just worry whenever there is a better position, but under time trouble, really just strange things happen, so he has to be very careful about the time. Jonas Baum still has 20 minutes, that's still pretty okay. And again, when you try to defend, even I'm sure he is aware he has a worse position, but that gives a big hope if you go so low on time. And just to remind you, there is no additional time here after move 40, so the players start with 90 minutes and then they get 30 seconds after each move, but that's it. So now when we are down to 3-4 minutes, well, it's gonna be hard to really get more time. 30 seconds is usually spent on the move, so most likely that means time trouble for him till the end of the game.
But here an important thing to actually have any chances to use this time trouble is for black now to find any way how to make the game still complicated. Because if you do pick up those 2 pawns, let's say exchanging even for this one, and stay with this fantastically safe pawn structure, it will be impossible that there is any danger whatsoever, because the pawn structure is just so crazy safe. So there are no weaknesses, no targets, and if we take bishop b5, of course the next move is gonna be bishop takes d5, and now the knight is pinned, so we are ready actually to take on c7 already this moment, and some moves to defend like king h8 or something probably do not help very much, because we can just take and then take, and this is barely holding. We have some back rank mate ideas as well, and Nor king is perfectly safe. We have no weak pawns, nothing to worry about. Only thing to improve the knight, find some great square for it, but I don't think that should be too hard. Okay, knight couldn't get to f4 probably in foreseeable future, but we could play d5 and get the knight, for example, on d4, and that if we succeed in doing that, that's a game over.
Absolutely. The position is really, really great for white. We were noticing it before. The pawn structure is such an important factor in those positional games. This is just the key, and here the pawn structure favors white. Thomas was mentioning he plays together with Laurušas in the team in a couple of team events. So knowing his playing style, I think this is also a dream position for him. He should be really strong in that. So most likely, even though the time is low, he has just a very big advantage. Now it's black to move, yeah? After knight d2, he has to figure out what to do with the d5 pawn. What else can he do?
You'll probably go queen d6 back, try to defend it, but that's just one piece that can defend it. We can attack it in two different ways. Okay, queen b3 actually seems very natural, since now we don't give any more b5 pawn, and anyways we are going to take the d5 pawn since there is no defenders. No way to bring anything over to defend. If we try c6, we can take, and now we lose the b6 pawn. So that does not help too much.
Yeah, and that's a very big factor here. We were mentioning before that c6 square is weak because of that the c7 pawn is a backward pawn. And if black, it makes a lot of sense. You try to exchange your weaknesses, but unfortunately here exchanging weakness creates another one on b6. So this is why this b5 pawn is actually a very nicely pushed pawn, because it kind of holds the structure together. This blocks the c pawn, and because of that it's a weakness, and because of that also the d5 pawn is a weakness since c6 cannot come to defend it.
So actually I don't think there's any other move than bishop takes b5 at all to consider here. We just have to take the pawn, and probably that is also what he's thinking about since opponent is low on time. He has already decided that he's going to take on b5, but he wants to apply some sort of pressure. So after the most obvious response of opponent, he needs to know what he's going to do. So he is planning his next move, and to be able to do at least 2-3 moves rather quickly, and maybe to at least make white think for a minute or two somewhere on some decision before all the pieces disappear from the board. So yeah, so I mean maybe he's trying to plan if c5 works, like if this position is somehow better to hold with 4 pawns against 3 on one side, or it's better to give up on c7 and to remain with a passed pawn on the b file. So that those are of course very, very tough positions. Probably it's the most hard thing actually at all in chess when you know that your position is bad, and to choose between, let's say, horrible position, bad position, another bad position. So which one is the least of the evils?
Well, true. I can agree with that. Unfortunately, sometimes those choices are actually there. It sounds like a joke, but it's not. This is the challenge of being a chess player. Sometimes you have those games, especially playing such a strong opponent like here, Tomasz Laurušas. Sometimes, yes, this is unfortunately what you have to struggle with, just choosing a bad position, which one gives you some, at least some slight chances, some hopes to still keep it there. We see some player. Was some game finished? Was there some? I think on board 8 we can mention. So we mentioned that 7th board, Krishna Rohit versus Hong Sen Chan. There white won. So Rohit is going to be a leader, one of the leaders after the 4th round. On board 8, Altay Safarli won his game, so but he didn't have a perfect score, so he's just there behind the leaders with half a point less. And board 1 already finished. We were mentioning that this is a very drawish position, so indeed Nicolas Teodorou gives up first half a point. Very normal game. I don't think he has to be very unhappy about it, despite the white color. His opponent was simply very solid today, so logical outcome, and he's just gonna be ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow we have 2 rounds. It's another double round day for the players, so he just has to regroup and strike back tomorrow.
And I think we could be now taking a look at board 4 because there are some fireworks. The game and one of the players is down to 1 minute in a very, very sharp position. So that is always exciting to see.
Absolutely. Let's see. This game is really interesting. We had possibility for the young Turkish player before to just, it seemed for us, take over the game. White seemed to just have bluffed, and it worked. And now, really, what is this position? All of the pieces are somewhere else.
Knight on b7 and knight on b2. That is just such a funny symmetry. So yeah, and but
that is the only symmetry in this position.
The only issue though is that there is a big chance that these pawns get traded off, and we just end up in a completely drawn position. Yet there are still things to worry about. Okay, so now the rook is attacked, and we are looking at some knight d2 ideas to undermine the only defender of the knight on b7. And what does white do here?
So let's say something normal like rook going back to a1. Just let's see if knight d2 already is going to be some huge issue. Again, attacking the rook on f1 and attacking the bishop on f3. The evil bar is not impressed, so I guess there are no huge issues. So let's say rook moves away. Now it's a problem. Now we take, and
now I think we have e4 as well to worry about.
Or we first take and then e4.
Or first take and then e4. Could we also think? Yeah, all those lines are crazy complicated. Okay, we can.
f6 is on the board. f6. So and rook is hanging. He does not defend the rook. He goes f6, threatening a checkmate on g7.
And he did the move with 7 seconds on the clock.
Yes, look at the clock for both players, 37 for white, and black has almost full 20 minutes
and g6 is answered. Wow, why do we not take the pawn?
If rook takes, it's winning for white. Maybe bishop rook a8?
Oh, we have rook a8, rook f8, and now bishop d5. Okay.
And rook from f1 is now opening it, but bishop gives a check, so black cannot react for the rook. And after rook from d4 captures the bishop, white will just take on f8. So that is a winning tactic, and still at the end queen f3 check wins the rook on d5. So this doesn't work. He couldn't take, but he plays g6.
And rook d5 answered. Wow, this seems to be so crazy to play move like rook d5 where everything is hanging with few seconds on the clock. There has to be something happening.
So first thing is that queen could capture the knight on b7. But then white is ready for it with rook taking on d4. And now black's queen is hanging, so the knight is actually indirectly defended, so it cannot be captured. But something else. What about
knight e3 as a move here? Attacking both rooks in the same time and making sure that there is no fork, and in case...
Maybe queen e5.
Queen e5, oh wow.
And it holds. Look at the bar. It didn't drop. I was getting ready for a dark evil bar, but I guess it holds because now if a knight takes our rook, we can take rook on d4, and if it takes here, then we take back with a check as well. So it is still fine. All right. So knight e3, not if.
But this is so crazy position. But maybe simple move like bishop e6. Just allowing this exchange. We have a passed pawn now. The knight is still stuck on b7. I think humanly this is still very uncomfortable to play from white because all the pieces are discoordinated, and this is now a serious passed pawn to worry about.
I agree, but there could be some issues with the black king, like queen c7 somewhere, some knight d8 stuff sometimes. See, there are some issues.
I was certain we can just take the pawn, but apparently we cannot.
Where are the issues though? So.
Okay, so queen check is not the thing.
We are guessing a bit. We see the evaluation, but we don't see the engine lines. at the moment. So maybe knight d8, knight c5 also.
So attacking everything in
The
the same
problem could
time.
be the light squares after we get our hands on this bishop on e6. Bishop on e6 is actually holding the position, but if we take it with our knight, then there could be serious issues on the light squares. Maybe knight d7, queen d8 somewhere.
Maybe we can start with queen d8, and now we can go something like... perhaps this
Also
is
queen d4.
annoying as well.
It just proves how complicated it is. You know, we are not stressed. We are not playing this game. Of course, they are a little deeper in the variations, but they are also stressed. And but we cannot figure it all out ourselves. This is a very complicated position. So many options, but I think this means it will be quite difficult for a player with white pieces due to his time.
Something got played. Bishop e6 got played, actually.
Bishop e6 got played.
And rook d4 instantly answered, and takes instantly answered. Are we gonna see queen c7, rook f6?
Queen c7 makes so much sense, but queen c7, I was wondering, maybe black can simply answer rook f7.
Perhaps, yeah, we don't need to take necessarily, but that would just lead to repetition with queen d8. Queen d8, queen c7, and we are gonna have a repetition here.
Yeah, unless they don't want. That is always the question. Do they want to repeat?
Queen went
Queen
to c7.
Queen c7 is on the board. How much time does he have? 54 seconds still. Remember, after every move they get additional 30 seconds, automatically added to the on the clock. Queen c7, threatening a checkmate on g7, so black is forced to answer something. They cannot do some counter attacks like knight e3 or knight e2. There is no time for it. Rook f7 or rook f6, probably those are the two only options. I don't think bishop f7 will be played because that is very passive. That pins the bishop. So I would play rook f7, but he has more time, so he could be tempted to simply capture on f6.
Can we try to play this? Is there anything, any point to it, let's say that?
As black?
As black, yeah. To refuse repetition, but to try to play on this position. What if queen d4, queen rook f6?
But I think white could even exchange on f8, and I think d4 pawn is going to fall anyway. And rook d1?
Yeah, that is very likely. We have to exchange those two anyways, and it just leads to a draw. Wow. Can it be that this wild position is gonna be a draw? I think he's gonna go for rook f6. Rook f6.
You're hoping that we are going to see some more fireworks here.
I think it could happen, but yeah, after knight c5, this seems to be collapsing.
What about knight d8? Knight c5 nicely cuts black's queen off. But knight d8, I was thinking that maybe it also makes sense because bishop is attacked and the f7 square is also.
No, knight e3 is a bad move.
I think knight e6 would be a problem, and queen c8.
Can we do something like queen d6 here? Oh, but still knight e6 and it's protecting. No, that's not the case. Wow, this is so many lines
That's
to calculate.
just incredible. And the worst thing sometimes about such positions is what you mentioned, that we could just see the exchange on those two pawns and position will simplify. And sometimes you see those games and it feels, when you don't really get into it, it's a boring game. But there are so many variations. Like now we are seeing that are not being played because both players noticed that this is not possible, but you have to calculate so much.
Yeah, he might go for a draw. He just might go for a draw. I mean, I guess he's not also for 100% set aggressively if he didn't take the knight on b5 before. So he might in this moment also be taking the safe approach and just just fix the result.
Yes, this is this game where we had a very interesting moment. Some time ago, White played f4 and Black had an opportunity. Rook takes f6 is played. It's on the board.
Oh wow!
It's a blunder. Look at the bar. He did go for it. We were just talking. He will probably go for a repetition for a safer option because before he could just take a material and there was actually no issues. He had to take it. He had a winning chance, and now he takes on f6 and that's a blunder of something not obvious at all. But it seems to be close to winning for White now. Wow, knight c5 seems to be the best move, yeah? Or is there something even better?
I guess knight c5. What happened?
What? A draw?
And they agreed for a draw. He played rook f6 and offered the draw. Oh my.
Oh no, that we did not see coming. What?
Instead of playing the safe move and going to a complete draw, he plays the aggressive move and offers the draw.
Maybe that was meant. No, no, they are now moving. Maybe that was the trick, because your opponent has no time, so you confidently take a pawn and you say you want to draw. But White had a winning position. The engine says it's +3.5. Knight c5 is one option, and it just seems that the pieces for Black are completely not ready to defend all of the squares around the king. Wow. I didn't see coming this handshake after rook f6.
And I think now they're going to take a look at this moment where he could have taken on b5. It seems to be that they are resetting the position there.
f5? They are analyzing something. Is that the position that was... Or it's something else, perhaps. Oh wow, that was that was a roller coaster.
But that was a very exciting game all the way through. Both sides were playing very aggressively, and of course mistakes are bound to happen when the game is so very sharp all the way through. And wow, okay, I guess it's in some ways a fair result, a draw in this one.
Yes, players just showed like with the finger something, so they will analyze most likely the game in a little more calm area on the stage. Other games are ongoing, so you cannot be too loud there. But yeah, kudos to the players. As Tom said, they were both playing very aggressive. Quite interesting to see it all. We see the evil bar, so we saw that it was possible to take the material. It seemed to be winning for Black, but still very interesting. And Hassan said like he's only 16 years old, so he is doing incredibly well. Before this round, his performance rating was 29.65, and now he is making another draw. So if he is fighting for a GM norm, I think he is, then he is for now doing really well in this tournament.
Yeah, so I guess it's time to switch to some other board to see some action. Still, have you seen some other great game, or do we keep focusing on the leaderboards?
I think for now we can focus on the leaderboards. For me, not all of the games are shown here. I also saw before that our top female player, Vantika Agrawal, had quite a promising position. Later, I'm not sure how it developed. So maybe we can take a quick look.
On board 10, so let's take a quick look on board 10. The game is still going on, and the position is still very, very promising. And might even be winning.
We have Vantika. She is one of the... We have group of players from India here, so she is one of them. Very strong, a woman grandmaster, also international master title, and she is facing a player who has 200 higher rating. But her position was really promising from the opening. She still has two pieces for the rook. Rook with the pawn, so very unclear material count, supposedly equal mathematically, but with material imbalances, it's all about understanding what is more important now and what is more important here in this position.
Yeah, I think actually both factors here are very important. So pieces are more active, more able to play for the king and for the tricks and those things. So that is great. But at the same time, we are also quite deep in the endgame. And the deeper we're in an endgame, the pawn plays a big role, this extra pawn that black has. And the rooks are actually having a lot of open files, a lot of space. So they become powerful pieces. So and since both of those factors actually work and actually are relevant, so probably that is why the position is balanced according to the engine. But humanly, I would really like to play this one with white. It just feels like there are more tricks, more tricks available, more tricks possible, and the king is on g8. It's on the last rank. The knight is just there. All we need is to bring the bishop somewhere over, and the danger is gonna start.
Knight d6 just played. That is probably to free the e8 square for the rook in some variations, but could black try to simply push the pawns on the queen side? As you said, the pawn could matter already, so can they start rolling before a4?
Before, we could see rook c7, and we could have quite a race here.
And who is first? Who is winning this race? Now, it's not easy to push.
I was under impression that I'm threatening a checkmate, but that is not the case.
Yeah, bishop is defending, so some other square would need to be, but it's not easy to get there.
Perhaps rook c2 is a good move to play, just to tie down the pawn from rolling a little bit. Wow, this is so complicated. So crazy complicated.
And Vantika, she is on 46 seconds. Meanwhile, her Grandmaster opponent has still quite a good situation on the clock. And in such a position, every move could be a fatal mistake. Every move could change the position, the evaluation of the position drastically. So it could be difficult to play it on 40 seconds because it's just so hard to predict. For example, in similar variation like we just seen, are you not simply losing the race?
Yeah, and it's impossible to calculate it, I would say, with the time. So you gotta just trust your instinct, trust your intuition, and just go for the line that seems correct to you because of the things that you know about chess endgames. And especially also, like in this kind of situation, opponent plays rook a3, and you have 40 seconds and you have to choose. Do you go for the pawn or you do go and defend the pawn? So this is just on intuition. There is no other way. There is no calculation because there is no time to calculate both of those lines and to compare them accordingly.
Can white try to repeat rook e8, rook e7, or is the king going to f6?
The king could go to f6, yeah, and that is actually kind of dangerous thing to do because king running forward could be a big deal, especially in the lines, I think, with the rook c7, the king already being kind of close to the pawn. Yeah, that would be kind of worrying for me here to play with
because the king can even sometimes get activated and try to checkmate our king with the rook. So king e4, king f3 somewhere possible. Not easy. I think for white the position maybe is fine, but in this exact situation with this time, I guess I would prefer to play with black. It just feels so risky with only 40 seconds on the clock.
But it is also risky for black at the same time. It's not like you don't take any risks. It's not like you play that you're always safe here. And is he gonna go for rook a3? No, he went for rook c3. So he wants to deal with the c-pawn and ask the questions. Do you go in passive defense of the c-pawn or are you looking for some active play around? No.
I guess you have to defend it because if white doesn't defend it, then black will simply take the c-pawn and then they will go for the a-pawn.
So knight e4 could be met by rook c1 though, and we have to be ready to give this pawn up with checks.
Rook e8 I think is played, right? Yes, check. King g7 probably. Unfortunately, white is not able to go bishop e5 because the bishop is pinned and the rook prevents this bishop to move. What does she want to do? Does she want to go rook e7? With rook e7, king f6, knight e4. Does white want to exchange the rooks?
No, the rook exchange should heavily favor black, because now this king is just gonna come. There are weaknesses, there are passed pawns. We have less pieces to stop the passer, because there's certainly gonna be a passed pawn for black, and we need somehow to stop it. And yeah, the less pieces we have on the board, the...
And also our rook was the best attacker, right? Our rook could be the one to take the c6 pawn, for example.
Exactly, yeah. But now, with the king on f6, the pawn is actually not attacked, so we could just play a move like rook e2.
Because if pawn is captured by the rook, we have knight e4. So king g7 just answered by Chinese Grandmaster.
They could repeat the position here as well. It is very, very possible. So yeah, this game is gonna be... either it's gonna be a repetition, or it's gonna still be a very, very long fight.
Vantika doesn't have too much time, so she probably is gonna play rook e7 very quickly. 19 seconds on the clock. Is there anything else? I think she will just play. She is down to 7.
Yeah,
Yes.
if she gave rook e8 check, then it has to be rook e7. Otherwise, the check was... it just didn't have any point, let's say that. And she definitely didn't play it just for no reason. She had some defensive ideas in her mind. Okay, so now the choice is to go back with the king or to go forward, because the moment you bring the king forward, you do have to worry that somewhere knight jumps could start. I mean, if you're tired, you know, after the game and so on, you can, at some point you can forget about something. Even some crazy mating knights can appear. Even at this moment it doesn't seem possible. But let's say the game just progresses in some normal way. Okay, we can't give up the rook, but let's say normal way. And what I wanted to say is, like, we get the king h3, and then already we can have some options of bishop h4 or bishop e5, and this king has nowhere to go.
But king is there, king is on f6, inviting all the adventures for both sides. It is getting sharper now. King on f6 could meet some trouble, but it is a play for a win, because now there is no repetition. Rook e2 is played, so that's the move that Toms was suggesting. Now the rook is guarding the a2 pawn, the c5 pawn cannot be captured because of the knight e5, knight e4. So yeah, this is a very interesting game. Yesterday Vantika Agraval was facing another strong grandmaster, Paulius Pultinevicius, and she also was fighting incredibly well, and she managed to get a draw. She even had a winning chance at the end, so let's see how this is going to go. But for now we should probably go back to the leaderboards. What do you think, Toms?
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the leaderboards. There are a lot of fights going on. Everybody is in time trouble. It's so hard to choose the game to actually follow. Which is the most exciting one? I think we can take a look at Tomasz Larushas against Jonas Baum, because both players are down to 1 minute, so board 3.
Okay, so board 3. Before we took a break some time ago, you mentioned that you think Tomasz Larushas will be one of the players who are going to end today with a perfect score, that he had a great chance for the win, and indeed his position was great. But now we are in some time trouble, and does Polish player have any chances to save this one? Chess-wise, it seemed to be really difficult for black, but yeah, with the time trouble, are there any complications?
Yeah, he did not take the pawn. That is, he tried to take the pawn, I guess, in a perfect way. Try to set it up for taking it in a perfect way, so he did. And sometimes it can backfire, especially in time trouble. It's just better to be pawn up, and then to think how to realize this advantage rather than to take it in a perfect way. And now, what do we have on the board? Okay, so we have this position after 92 on the board. c7 pawn is hanging, but we can defend it. No, it's not hanging, because rook c8 would follow, and the rook on c1 would be hanging if we decided to take queen c7.
So where we left it, what happened?
We left it
Just this one moment.
just here, and the queen a5 was played, takes, and here he decided not to take the pawn.
Okay, so he didn't take the knight and pick up the pawn on c7, but he kept more pieces here on the board, I see it.
And here apparently he is completely winning. Like as you can see, the evaluation bar, it's showing +4, and it's just completely winning apparently. Could it be just d5, d6 and d takes c7? Is the game over?
d5, attacking the knight. If knight moves, d6 is a check, and then just since black has to focus on defending the king, can take on c7. Oh wow, maybe that was the thing. But I told you that in time travel it's so tricky.
Yeah, now there are just lot of moves going back and forth. So queen b4 was played, a lot of moves coming in, bishop g2, players have no time, and
Queen a2.
And we see again black is getting discoordinated. He did not defend the pawn on c7. The bishop on a4 seems out of place. Knight on f8 seems out of place. And rook c4 is a very big threat. Just winning the bishop now, and in the same time we're attacking on c7.
Exactly. This bishop on d7 was preventing the queen from taking because of this rook c8 idea. But now I guess the pieces are just a bit too loose.
And look at the time.
Yes, suddenly it is Jonas Baum who is in time trouble. Some 15 minutes ago, White had the same amount of time and Black had those extra 15 minutes, but now he spent it all.
And the last 3 or 4 moves were instant by Thomas, and he just built up this time, and he is actually pressuring on the time right now. He is the one who wants to pressure, and we saw that it worked out for him great yesterday. He did pressure his opponent on time, and he actually not only won because of the time-induced mistake, he simply won on time.
He simply, yes, won on time. And it was also a Polish player, actually, a young Polish player. So Polish players are getting experience playing against Tomasz Lauruszas here. Rook c7 is on the board. Now it can be captured, and White is a pawn up, and a very strong d-pawn as well. It's a passed pawn now. And still the issue for Black that pieces are not coordinated, because material is not everything, but there is no activity for this pawn for Black.
So bishop on a4 is basically, could be as well a pawn on this way how the game is now going on. Sometimes the pawn could be more useful than a bishop on a4 in here, because the pawn could try to advance for a queen, but bishop on a4 is just gonna stand there, and it feels like everything has gone wrong. Everything has gone wrong here for Black, and the game is gonna be very easily converted. And again, already instant move, already up to 3 minutes for Tomasz, and
that's impressive. That's actually very impressive how much time he is getting on those quick decisions, and that makes it just much more comfortable for him.
And that is actually a very, very important practical skill. We just a moment ago, the previous game that we were looking at, how Wantika was playing, she, for example, decided to go for rook e8, and then after king g7, she was still not decided on rook e7. While if she did those 2 checks, she could already just get 1 minute, and that is a very, very big deal, because she probably had already decided that she's going for it, but there was this uncertainty in time trouble that everybody gets, and yeah, just here we can see how quickly you can build up the time on some of those easy moves.
So knight f3 followed queen e5, and that's another quick move, and a bit more and more time on the clock. Queen h5, that's going still, you know, away from the center, from other pieces. But of course, as long as the game is on, there are some chances. Maybe bishop d1 is going to be something that he's going to try. After all, trying to prove to you, I guess, mainly that the bishop is better than the pawn. But yeah, as we see, the evil bar also doesn't think that there is any anything real here that black has.
Knight is going for the perfect square, but I also actually mentioned when we were looking at this position the previous time that if we get d5, knight d4, the game should be just over. And here we have this perfect setup just coming in. Everything will be safe, everything will be coordinated, and we are just blocking all opponent's pieces. So yeah, this game seems to be practically over with this time situation and the position as it is. So if we have some other games that are still not decided, we can take a look at those.
I think we could take a look still quickly at board number 2, because this is one of the crucial games for the leaders. Kacper Piorun is playing there, and the second seed was in trouble according to everything we've seen. So let's see if that's still the case, because that would be huge if second seed of the tournament is going to lose today.
Yeah, his opponent is just pushing, and at one point it seems like the position didn't really change too much, but Kacper didn't manage to hold the tension and felt like he needs to go for this e5 break, which just made his position immediately to collapse. And those knights suddenly had no longer any decent squares where to land to. For the knights, it's extremely important that they would have some outposts, some protected squares by the pawns where bishops can't harass them. And here, yeah, he lost those squares, and we see that white is just picking up the pawns and ends up 2 pawns up.
Oh wow, this is really bad news for black to let go everything that was still holding this position, and now he's hoping for some rook d2 taking the b2 pawn. You have to hope for that. He is pushing on time, so Kacper Piorun is playing quite quickly. He's still on 8 minutes, but yeah, objectively it has to be just lost.
And I must say that this is really great game by Joseph. Like, just this decision, he took the pawn, he correctly understood that he needs to exchange the queens, he had a plan, and then just step by step he improved everything in his position until the position was great, and yeah, the opponent just couldn't manage the tension anymore and started to do some, just felt like he needs to do something immediate, you know, just to break the position. This is like the very human reaction we see in a lot of cases in the hard positions, and yeah, and just taking home the point.
Yeah, this queen exchange was really just a very skilled exchange, and oftentimes exchanges can change very much how the position really is, and you can use them to just outplay your opponent. E6 is on the board. Oh wow!
And that's a winning blow, and looks like that was also missed. Kacper is shaking his head.
E6 a fork, so it has to be captured, but now the geometry, the light square bishop is just coming with a check and will take the rook. So that is game over. We see the bar is almost completely white. Takes the rook. We have it on the board. King captures back. So now I don't think that anything can save black. Still he's attacking the pawn on b2. What is the most precise way to continue?
The most
here?
easy way is, of course, to go for this, and just to go take the pawn. Just use that we have 2 rooks, and we just safely go and take the pawn. And 3 against 2, rook against knight is gonna be very easy win. So that is like the human thing, but of course there could be something also more precise, using the fact that the king is weak. Okay.
He did go for that just without a rook, so I guess he is human. He proved. Attacking from this side, it doesn't change much. Rook b2, rook a3.
He could go also for picking up the knight here, though. So the king goes somewhere away. We can give another check, and we can go for attacking the knight.
And black check on b1, b2.
And we take it with a check, and we go back, and that's it.
Yeah, the problem is a check.
Yeah, so this game is over. There is nothing gonna happen. 2 minutes still for white player here, and there are no more tricks. There are no more tricks at all. Like no realistic
And
chances.
resignation by the second seed. So indeed, we have a huge upset. Joseph played a great game, as Tom's mentioned. Very, very big understanding shown, like positional understanding. Great exchange of the queens, going for a end game, using the bishop pair. Oh wow, yeah, we see that Kacper Piorun is not happy. Very disappointing for him for sure. But his opponent showed a very big class today. It will be interesting to see in the following rounds how he's going to be playing as well. So now we should see another game.
So we still have undecided kind of positions on the board 5s and board 6. I guess board 6 is about to finish as well. Do we want to see it, actually?
Let's take a quick look. Almu Mutaja against Jakob Paikan. We've seen it before, and Black was doing great already from the opening, and it seems he is about to win the game.
Yeah, this is also
resignation. We just have seen a handshake.
So yeah, so Pike and Jacob wins the game. I think he also played a very nice game. Just got the nice position from the opening. Very nicely provoked some weaknesses and just used it fully.
Yeah, so maybe we can see the final position on the board just to see why is the game over.
I have to catch up with this position because they did play a lot of moves in the last minutes, being in big time trouble. So
here we see that White King is in a very heavy trouble, and Bishop on G2. This bishop is actually like a big pawn as well, and just huge pressure and very dangerous attack that proved to be deadly in a couple of moves.
So just making sure, yeah, that the king has nowhere really to go. Okay, so that was not the last move. The rook f6 was played.
And White has no hopes because White has no bishop and the dark squares are just...
And funny, in this position, Black still just went queen a5. Just to the other side of the board, attacking some weaknesses.
That
and
is quite funny.
Just taking the pawn on a4 from the other side. Kind of an insurance that just in case we have a pawn also on the other side of the board. Now there's some checkmating ideas. And the king is in a complete cage all of a sudden, and rook f4, rook h4 is coming with a checkmate. And
Absolutely.
The bishop cannot cover because then we have a checkmate on h2.
Yeah, that is a very good example of how attack with different color bishops. So we have seen some end games with different color bishops, and those have very big drawish tendencies. But if you attack, you just have an extra piece, and you see it perfectly. Even in this final position, bishop on g3 is worth a million here, and bishop on g2 is just super sad and not helpful in any way, not in the attack, not in the defense. And it is another game, not such a big rating difference, but still a lower rated player wins with black pieces. So I'm sure Jacob is extremely happy. He is joining the leaders with 4 out of 4. And incredible performance by him so far. Let's see, we have last game going, right?
From the top boards, yes, but on board 5 we'll probably see just a draw on rook endgame. Some things could happen there, but if you wish to see, we can maybe return to the board 10, Anna, and to see how that game plays out.
Okay, let's see, of course. We have our top female player there. I always want to see how our ladies are doing. And that position was also very exciting, even though it's an end game. But there was nothing really clear. We left it where last move king f6 was played, and the evaluation was that it just invites adventures for both sides. So let's see how are those adventures going and who is feeling more happy with how everything is going.
It felt like, due to the time situation, it is clearly black that is playing for the win. White is just doing some move repetitions time to time. But I think at this point, yeah, the time could be playing the part also in the opposite direction. You don't have that much time to think about things anymore. The a2 pawn was picked up, and now white is trying to create some mating net. Is that the case?
So, is that the position now?
Not yet. So this was the
Rook
position.
e5 is somehow don't like, because it seems that black is managing to escape, no?
Yeah, it does seem like the case. And this is what's happening. All the time she's doing the repetition moves with the checks and losing somewhere a move and losing a move.
Yeah,
Already like for third or fourth time. And
she's really low on time, so you see the clock for white 38 seconds. That means the last move that Ventika made was only with 8 seconds, and it's so difficult. She's already there on this time situation for a long time. It's so stressful. You barely manage to write down the move, look at the position, and you already have to play something because you're running out of time. So the bar is still not dramatic, but it does feel like black simply took the pawn on a2 and has to pass pawns on the queen side, and white has to show something that they have for it, and maybe it will be quite difficult to really prove that it's enough.
yeah, and so far it seems like she does not see how to really proceed, and that's why we see those repetitions that there are moves, but there's no clarity, and that just could mean still 2 more times something like this happens, of those checks back and forth, and the pawn can be on the b3, on the b2, and that can be just mean the game over. So she needs to find some checking net, probably some ideas of perpetual check.
Checking net. That's a new thing. I don't know what that is.
So something that the king cannot escape the perpetual check, just to create some sort of a wall. Wow, h5 played.
But yeah, what I wanted to mention, I think the position indeed was improved for black, but Grandmaster opponent is also spending a lot of time, and he's down to 240. Of course,
I'm wondering what is h5 move about. It seems like it gives up the rather important g5 square where the knight or the bishop could actually activate through.
Rook e6 is played, so rook e6 check is on the board.
Because it felt to me that the position already established that there is no perpetual check. Already a few times it was done, there was no perpetual check. So why is he not just pushing the pawns?
Maybe he saw something. You know, sometimes that's the problem when you see something, even if your opponent doesn't see it, but you know it's there and you try to defend from it. And you can play some move which actually weakens the position.
Okay, I assume his idea was he wanted to play something like rook g3 or rook a2, but he didn't want to allow king g4. So that's why maybe h5 was played?
He's waving the hand. Maybe there's some fly annoying him.
Oh yeah, the flies, I think they are appearing time to time, as we saw quite a few players waving the hands around already. So king g5 is on the board. This is very, very sharp. So if rook e5, there will be king f6 played, probably. And then we have to decide, do we just take on h5? I like the idea.
So at least we use the fact that the pawn was pushed, we take it, we have at least something, and also at some point if rook from the 4th rank is going to disappear, our king can join the game as well. What was played? King f6, so now the question is, Ventika, is she going to take on h5? The players, I think, just reached for a new score sheet? No, can't be. This is move 60 already?
No, this is move 57, but...
so very soon we will have move 60.
They are getting ready for it.
Yeah, usually when you see players write down the moves, there are 60 moves on one paper, and usually it's enough. But then sometimes you see them reaching for another one because, yeah, if more moves are going to be played, they need to write them down as well. Of course, they need to write down all the moves, no matter how little time they have on the clock, and this is why they are taking another one. Rook takes h5 is on the board. This is really crazy.
But this can end in any result. White can win this game as well, especially now with the h-pawn gone.
There could be some mating nets if if white is going to manage somehow to advance the king with the bishop rook, just push the king away, and those rooks will have really difficult time to join the game, because knight and bishop will be very powerful with taking control of a lot of squares at the same time. But for now it's quite difficult to imagine. But what is the most likely continuation?
I have no idea at this point anymore, because maybe king e6 to run.
Maybe rook.
Maybe his idea was to sacrifice h-pawn just to get the king out of this cage. He saw some sort of cage and he wants to just go king e6 and to hide from all the checks.
But rook e5 maybe?
Rook e5 and we go king d7 and there are no more checks. And then we are kind of preparing to advance. But although knight f5, rook e7...
So bishop h4 could be as well. Although bishop h4, I guess rook c3.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very curious decision for me. And this
He's
game
already on 1 minute 20, and the fly is disturbing him in time travel.
And I think he knows that he did something wrong. I think he realizes it, and that's why he is now also like not so sure what to continue, spending all the time, and the game is just wide open. I think the white is really in the driver's seat at this point.
Down to 1 minute. 1 minute against 35 seconds. That is lottery in some ways. But what will he play? King e6 makes sense. Maybe this rook from a4 could somewhere jump to start pushing the a pawn.
Yeah, but if we take it away from the a file, then we risk losing it to some sort of knight jumps, knight forks. When we're in
like
time
rook
trouble.
d4, there could come sometime knight f5. But let's say rook d4. But bishop e5 is there. Bishop e5 wins the rook on the spot. b4, so he...
Now before.
So he pushes the pawn. That I wanted to move the rook first, but there was no square. This closes the rook a bit, but it makes a lot of sense. Just push the passed pawn.
Okay, now we need some moves, some ideas, because the pawn can become dangerous if we are indecisive. With white, the pawn can become a big, big weapon. At this moment, it's horribly placed.
What about rook h6 or rook f5, just to push the king away?
King can go to g6, although, and we are not exactly winning anything.
Rook h6, okay, yeah, so that is maybe better. That was the first idea, because somehow I want king g4, and after b3, king g5 can...
What happens after king g5, though? Are we playing knight f7? Oh, we have knight f7 and rook takes c6.
Or even a draw. Wait, isn't there a draw? We have your checking net. We have your checking net. Look, the king cannot escape.
Yeah, that would be a draw.
That is a draw. Knight f7, king f5. That's the only thing, and you have your checking net.
But we could play here for a win as well from white, couldn't we?
We could, but the pawn is rolling. I'm not sure if that will be... But king g5 is not played. King g5 was allowing a draw. I think he still wants to win. But now knight f5... Has she played it?
She should play it very quickly. Yes, knight f5 was played very quickly.
King f7. Will she play king g4 or knight d6?
Knight d6, king f8, and again we could end up in the situation that we don't manage to find those checks.
Can we go king g4 as white? If white goes king g4, b3 is going for it with the pawn with a check. King g5 looks very dangerous, but it's also dangerous for white because b2. And are there even any threats?
I think we are lacking a little bit lacking.
It seems that white has 4 pieces, but there is nothing. There is no checkmate.
We could take the rook, but it's not enough because the pawn is gonna promote.
Oh, this is crazy. And Ventika is down to 14 seconds. What will she play?
And to calculate all of this is...
Rook c6? 7 seconds. She takes the pawn. Is that a good move? It seems to be a good decision. The evil bar is still in the same position.
And now b3, and this is gonna be the decisive moment of the game now. After b3, what is gonna happen? b3 has to be played, otherwise white is gonna be better. Without the rook playing, the pawn is gonna roll, all the threats are still there.
b3 on the board. Is rook b6 a necessary move?
But rook b6, rook b4, we cannot stop it. It cannot be rook b6. Suddenly our rook has no checks anymore.
This doesn't work, so what to play as white?
Maybe we have to continue going for some checking then?
Maybe bishop e5 to get some thing under control? What do you do? Bishop
Wow, this
e5
is so hard.
isn't there a draw after rook f6?
Bishop e5, g7, and
Rook f6, maybe there is no escape from checks.
just
Actually,
checks on the 6th rank all the time.
it seems to be working actually.
We
But
just
she went knight h6. So after b3 check knight h6, I feel this is losing most likely because it seems that the pieces are not consolidated enough for a draw.
yeah, bishop e5, that was a great draw, just to show here in this position that king cannot go anywhere. He has to leave the 7th rank, and wherever we go there are checks forever. We just cannot get away. And if the king comes to b file, then we are already just picking up the b2 pawn. We don't anymore need the perpetual. Wow, that was insanely nice idea here.
Oh wow, yeah, that's true. That is like study like idea actually that it works. Knight h6 though played king e8 on the board.
And now knight cannot join the king in any way. It's too far away.
Here the pieces are not working as well together, and
Okay, she might try the same idea of giving checks here and if to try to force the king to b file. So it's not that easy. So there has to be some geometrical trick actually to win it. Since we cannot put also king.
But what if king f8?
Also cannot put king on c7 because we can have a check like this.
King d7 played by Chinese Grandmaster. Rook d6 is most likely going to be played. Yes, we have it on the board. They're both around 1 minute, so they are managing to keep their time.
Yeah, so the king has to come here, and the big difference will be that in the position with king f8, rook f6 check, there comes king g7 attacking both rook and the knight, and they cannot cooperate anymore.
And could be that then bishop e5 is still some option, but it's probably one tempo that is lacking.
King e7.
Knight f5 probably has to be answered after king e7, right?
But then why don't we have bishop e5 anymore? Oh, because c5 pawn is hanging. We already have c5 pawn hanging.
And again, there are those small differences and those repetitions don't work because rook is on d6 and not on c6 in this case.
Previous position we had rook here standing, and now we already gave a check and it doesn't work anymore.
But this is insane. After 4 hours of playing chess and playing for Vantika,
And how do we lose after 94?
Maybe takes and now
But
b2.
then we have rook check and rook d7.
What about b2?
Oh, just b2. Okay, just b2, just promoting. Yes, we don't need the rook anymore. Oh wow, that is a crazy outcome. Knight h6 again played.
But this was not what we had before, right?
Oh, now the king gonna go to f8, and there is the big problem of what to do.
It must be so crazy.
Although not king
The differences
g7,
are
now
so
king
small.
e7.
Bishop e5, I guess. King is on f8
But
now.
then we lose the...
Yeah. Then black still has an option of taking the c5 pawn.
So the pieces, they just don't manage to coordinate.
Wow.
That is very intense game.
Very subtle differences. It seems that black is indeed managing to win this game. Very good defense by Vantika Agrawal. Just so little missing from saving this game. But yeah, this was really difficult to find this perfect setup. You know, this exactly move order which manages to save the game. Otherwise it's so dangerous with the b pawn rolling, and yeah, most likely it's going to roll all the way to b1 or the game will be lost earlier.
And she plays... What did she play?
Rook f6.
Rook f6 is played, and now king g7 is still chances. King e7 is lost.
Okay, so that's still a big decision. I think king g7 is like a little bit more dangerous because king has less squares available. Feels a bit safer to go to e7 where you have wider uh, range of moves available. But let's still see this moment. What will he play?
King e7, knight g8, and then the knight is gonna be just attacked by king from f8, and there will be no way to connect it with something dangerous.
He still has 50 seconds. It's running, but I think it will be enough for him to make a good decision.
But maybe he doesn't want to keep it on e7 because then sometimes he can't take the c5 pawn. There's bishop d6 ideas.
30 seconds on the clock. King e7 or king g7? King g7 is played.
Oh wow. Oh wow, what a roller coaster game. Okay, it's still not a draw, but
it's crazy to figure out those small differences. It is just so hard.
What is he planning after this? Is he just planning to take? And after knight,
maybe, yeah.
Knight f5, he goes king g8. No, king g8 is not correct, so he has to go
King e5 played. King e5, sorry, bishop e5 is played. It's on the board. There are so many crazy geometrical ideas.
And we are just not in time to checkmate. King somehow runs around on g8 and
he takes very confidently, just picking up this pawn that attacks the bishop. This bishop is the piece that would be checking the king after rook moves, so he is just confident that here it's everything fine. Knight f5.
And now king h7, the only move.
After king g8, what happens? What is the difference?
I guess knight e7 comes. And we are again having the same checking pattern with rook not leaving the third rank this time. The f-file.
Okay, so let's still see. This is so complex. It seems that all those moves are the same, right? What's the difference? King h8
and king h7 played.
But they see it. King h7 is on the board. And he still keeps this time 1 minute.
And now if we go rook f7, then we manage to just bring the king over to g5 and all the pieces suddenly are completely tangled up. Wow. That is crazy. And yeah, somehow their pawns finished. The pawns just finished and then the pieces became very, very weak because there were no pawns anymore to support them. For the pieces, it's very, very important to have some pawns on the board. Just even one pawn somewhere to defend the bishop could instantly just change the whole evolution of the game. But and I can't imagine what to do here, how to prolong the game. I mean, some sort of tricks there should be still. But it's very, very hard to calculate them. Some checks and in some correct moments some are giving up a piece for some pawns and trying to get some... Great would be to give up the knight for the pawns in some cases, but because bishop gives at least some theoretical chances for a draw.
Bishop b2 played with 3 seconds on the clock, but this
then we are gonna see just rook.
Help.
No, rook a2 is a blunder. Rook a2 doesn't work.
Maybe then rook h6, rook g6. Wait. Let's see.
No, not that.
Rook f4 is played instead. That somehow feels... What? Look, this is a blunder.
We have rook f8, knight e7, and rook takes f4.
Rook f8? What do you mean rook f8?
Rook f7, no. Oh, sorry.
Knight
I got too
hanging.
excited.
Knight is rook h6, king g8, knight e7. Rook h6 played. That's a... What
no,
is
not
happening?
knight e7. Rook... What is happening?
Rook g6. What is happening? White has a winning position. Look at the evil bar. It's white.
Is it rook g6 now?
Rook g6 seems to be the move. All those ideas, the king cannot go to the dark square because rook will just...
Oh, now there is a... And now we have a check. So king cannot go to the
She's
f-file.
on 5 seconds. What did she play?
Wow, this is so hard to see.
96.
This is so hard to see.
Knight d6 played, that cannot be helping.
Oh no.
Rook g6, that was also a good move in the time travel to try because it's a check.
Yeah, so the idea was here to see this, and king on h8, and then it is just over because there is a discovered attack.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
rook
she
g6, just to show why it was winning, because here, wherever we go with the king, if we go to e8, we have a check, and we take the rook, and if we come to g8, then we have a check, and we take the rook.
But of course, they do not know that there is something, so they just play a move that seemed to be the best in the moment. Knight d6, but it still keeps the position alive. It is not yet lost, so there are tricks. Well done to Vantika Agraval for keeping this fight alive. Now, king f8 was played. Oh, but this is crazy now. Some ideas of bishop a3 could be there, but maybe...
But this is still now hard to play with white, because the pieces are not coordinated. King wants to run away from all the danger to the other side of the board, and we still have to worry about the b-pawn. This is a very serious thing to do, and why the evaluation bar dropped is probably because there are all those defensive drawing ideas. I like this move. This is very nice. We are threatening checkmate in one, that's first. And second, we don't let the king run away to the queen side where our pieces will not be able to attack it.
Yeah, this seems to be like a very strong practical move.
So probably king g8 has to be now played, because that's a big checkmate.
Checks for black don't seem to be helping because those rooks can be targeted immediately. Rook f3, then king can attack it with king g4, rook h5, then king g3 also targeting another rook. So black has to do something else.
King g8 looks like the only move.
He still has some seconds to make this decision. 16 seconds. King g8 is on the board. But what do you do now? As you said, the pieces seem to be slightly discoordinated.
But can we now go for something like this?
King h7 is the only move. Rook h... or just check here.
We just keep checking like this. Where do you run?
She went back, rook h6. Was that the position before? Is that the repetition?
Yes, this is repetition. Oh, because this is also a checkmate. That was her idea.
So knight d6. We actually missed it, I guess. Let's see. What happened?
So they are gonna repeat now, because it's
No,
just...
he played something else. Rook c3. Wow. Rook c3.
So he is sacrificing a rook to play with those two pawns, but...
And the evil bar still remains unmoved. Wow, that's incredible.
So he's doing everything to prolong this game. No draw, just so wanting to win, like looking for every chance. Look at this. Most of the players would just take a draw here, but rook c3, this is such a crazy idea.
Bishop takes, and now rook f3 check. He gave rook, now will take the bishop, but he has still the b pawn that he will put all the hopes into the pawn. Okay, there's a pawn as well, so the pawns can be still
so probably
connected.
we go knight e4 here as the human move, attacking the rook, getting it closer for attacking, defending, and... But white could win this as well still. This is not over. It's so easy. The king is active. It's so easy to get some mating net with the king, rook and the knight when it's already coming just there. The king is on the last rank, and this is still a lot of moves away.
I am always worried about the pawns, so I would be a little bit concerned. But knight e4, rook c4, and rook b4, it's not gonna...
Yeah, we'll just go king f5 here.
And rook b4.
Rook b4, but we are in time. Even just to give up the knight, then it's a draw immediately.
Yeah, that's true. White can give up a knight.
And that's why I like knight e4 move, because that gives us an insurance kind of way that, okay, if we can't find anything better, we can just give up the knight. But you still have to worry. What if I just try, for example, to block the pawn? Let's say I go here, and in b2 I just want to put knight on b1.
And rook can even come to h3 and just block everything.
This could go to rook and a knight against rook. Which we will not cover till the end, but it could get there.
Oh wow. But
Because the rook will have to come to take the pawn, and then meantime black could try to take the h pawn.
that's so interesting that he went for this position. He really didn't want to draw. But it doesn't feel like he can really win this. But of course he knows that his opponent has already been in this serious time trouble for a long time. And to make a couple of strong moves in time trouble is one thing, but to keep playing for half an hour or maybe even longer, it is very taxing. And then at some point you can just get overtired because it's constant, maximum amount of focus, and also adrenaline is super high, and at some point it can just be very difficult to keep playing.
Yeah, I think I have, in this kind of manner, I have overpushed so many games, just always trying to prolong it, and at some point just trying to do it too much, and suddenly to end up on the defensive, and instead of pushing, like pushing an endgame, let's say for 50 moves, and then suddenly ended up on defensive and having to defend it still for 50 moves. That is a very unpleasant situation to be in.
Yeah, but we love those players. We love those players with the fighting spirit. They make the game so much more interesting. I
think he didn't realize that knight is so quick to stop the pawn. I think that was something that he didn't realize, because he had seconds, he had no time to really consider it in detail. Because if the knight would not become, even if he had the pawn already on a4, that would be already a big difference, but this one tempo is changing everything. Because if the pawn was on a4, in some lines we could be ready even to give up the rook for the knight, and just two pawns on their own could be promoting.
We still have another position with this material as we had here. Just a moment ago, the two pieces are against the rook in the game of Sherman and Meshkovs, but I guess there is just a draw.
Yeah, so that game has already finished in a draw.
Ah, that just finished, okay. So
he plays a4. Okay, so the pawn is on a4, so this is keeping it tense, keeping the suspense on the board.
Maybe rook a6.
I would like to stop the pawn, which
pawn
is more advanced already.
And
rook
so
b6
has
is played.
Vantika, yes, she played it.
Okay, and now that moment, is black gonna make some draw, or we are gonna see rook b7, knight f6, and a mating knight already against the black king?
Some draw, meaning what should black do? What is this?
I don't know, but black has to watch out.
What is the simplifying of the position? Rook c2 to guard the second rank so that the pawn can go forward.
Do we save the pawn, or do we try to get rid of the pawns here? Okay, I think we can also start giving some checks, a lot of checks.
If you want a draw as white, you can probably keep checking, or knight f6 probably also.
Yeah, knight f6 is probably very quickly a draw, because the king would have to go somewhere. We could give a check, and in this position we could just do something like this, and always just go for these kind of ideas. Okay, knight f6. She played knight f6, so she is looking at the black king.
King f8. Because now if white checks rook b8, there's still king e7, yeah? Okay, but maybe it's not so easy, because king g6, rook g2, king f5, then black simply pushes b2.
Or takes on h2 the pawn, and then a moment later wants to push the b2. That is correct.
h4?
What about h4 here?
b2, h5.
No, that is...
Oh, you're getting in some trouble.
That is not working out. No, not here, but... not here. So what do we do? Why are we in trouble?
King e4 is on the board.
King e4.
Wait. Let's see. King e4.
Okay, so black can force a draw by taking on h2.
I don't think he wants a draw, though. I think he's gonna go b2.
King d3. Now we have to take.
Takes.
And now the knight is gonna come back.
Yes, b2 is played. b2 on the board.
And now just getting back with the knight for Okay, so not taking any more risks, not trying to find a win, but trying to play it safe. King e4 is the move, of course, that is trying to play it just safely. Yeah, king d3 is on the board. And I guess rook h2 is gonna be played also instantly. Not many other options at all available. I mean, you still have rook c6 as the move, since you cannot take, as I'll be promoting. But of course, that is also just an offer of a draw.
No, he took. That still feels like their chances. If they are somewhere, they are here. And we know that that he wants some chances. He went for the position without a knight, even though he could have repeated. So he wanted those chances, even if they're connected with the risk.
Last seconds on the clock. Knight has to come back. That was the whole plan. So knight e4 or knight d5. Both are looking very logical. So knight e4 played. So the idea of the check was to just give a faster route for the king to return.
Knight e4 is on the board. Now a3 is on the board as well.
Can we just go knight c3? Just block both of the squares for the biggest safety feeling?
Yeah, that feels like the most. I don't really see what can be done. I think it's played.
Yeah, knight
Yeah.
c3 is played, and this looks very, very safe. And the question is, can black avoid somehow losing the pawns?
Now white can simply play rook a6, right? Or no. Rook a6, then rook h3, and rook c3. So let's say
Yeah, so we can...
black plays now king e7, and if we try to simply attack the pawn from a file, then rook there and taking the knight, so there is no knight anymore to control the promotion square. So rook has to stay on the b file. So rook b3, is that gonna work? Will that work? I think rook b3 should work.
Yeah, it should be good enough. Rook b3 is very natural. We don't give up anything. We keep it all safe.
What will he play? How is he going to...
Although on rook b3, we have to watch out for some ideas, like a2, knight takes, rook h3, king coming over, and then rook takes b3, with us not being able to recapture due to b1 queen. Which is, of course, a draw still, because I think we can block it off.
No, then we
no.
don't have a knight move.
We have no knight move. We're in a complete Tsutsang in that case. Oh, wow. That would be a crazy
But
trick.
he went rook h1. Rook h1, does it mean that now...
Now his idea is that we can never... If we take here, he goes b1.
But after b1 we take.
No, like, we can't take on a3. That was probably his point.
If we take on a3, b1, we take with the knight on b1 and it's a draw.
Exactly. Like that it's trying to play it safe.
No, he wants some... No, he wants to win still, I think.
Okay, rook c1, king d2. I think that was actually a very, very nice trick, just to demonstrate the idea. Just to provoke, basically, opponent to come for the pawn here, a2. And the trick being that if we take knight a2, we have this, and we cannot take the rook because b1 is going to be a queen. And if we play king b1, hoping to get the pawn later, black just plays a move, and white has no moves.
It's a Zugzwang. White is blocked. If king moves, then b1 queens, and if knight moves, knight will be captured because there is not a single safe square. So now he maneuvered the rook to c1, king is on d2. How do you play? It's such a strange position. It should be a draw in many ways, but there are also many tricks.
Can any of the sides progress? Like, let's say if we just skip the moves all over.
I think king tries to go forward.
Yeah, and white I think should just skip a lot of moves. Or, of course, rook b3. We just go
So
rook
now rook
b3.
b3, rook takes, doesn't work. Rook b3, rook a1,
Yeah, rook
but then
a1.
king c2. And you can even take rook b2, right? They will not be playing rook versus knight.
Probably we can also just go knight b1 in that position. And after a2, just take rook takes b2. And yeah, so
Yeah, so most likely there is nothing really.
yeah, rook b3, and this is, I think this is game over. This is
Yeah.
game over. You're just gonna make okay, you can still make a move with a king, like king e6, because you still cannot take on a3, and still ask the white player, what's your next move? And the white should just skip it. Okay, he's doing that with king d7, and now we can just skip a move by just, I don't know, doing any move with a rook.
Yeah, so most likely we will see a draw here. Great fight by both players, and that also concludes the round for today. So let us quickly just sum up what happened in this round. We had a draw on the first board, so our top seed is no longer on a perfect score. We then had an upset on the second board, so Kacper Piorun not happy about this result. Hopefully we'll see him back in the top. Joseph Girel is on a perfect score after today, and he's joined by Jakob Pejaken, Krishna Rohit, and I think those are the only players.
What? Wow, there is a blunder. Oh my god.
So we have to just quickly get back to this game. Just happened blunder.
Oh wow.
Oh no, and we see the...
So king d3 was played here, not suspecting any danger, and b1 comes, drawing the knight away from the a2 square, and a pawn is just promoting. Rook b1, and we just take on b1, and this is the classical situation where knight is not able to do anything about the pawn.
Oh my goodness. So, and we see Vantika being very, very upset about it. But what a great display by the Chinese Grandmaster of fighting till the very, 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 very last trick. And he got this one. And he got this trick. Oh wow. That is so difficult.
Wow, so this game is over, there are no more chances. That was... wow, that was really, really unexpected, sudden, still trick. Just really looking till the end, till the last moment. Never just giving an easy, even half a point to your opponent. Just...
yeah, and he was even in trouble. So, but that's chess. That's why we love this game. There's so many turnarounds. We see though now very painful moments for Vantika. She fought so well, and yesterday as well, but it's so difficult against those grandmasters on this level. But hopefully we'll see her back on the stage, because those are our top boards on the stage, and the last couple of moves will be played here. Meanwhile, board number 3 is still playing, but most likely it's gonna be a draw in this game. Yes, this is those are the players, Tomasz Lauruszas and Jonas Baum, and probably...
that is quite a rollercoasting game, has been, of course, because Tomasz Lauruszas was completely winning the entire game. Almost like he had a huge advantage, and most of the game he was completely winning. And when we left it, he had a lot of time. Opponent had seconds, and it looked like there's no game left. But at the moment they are still playing, and I think he is very close also to being actually in some trouble if he is not careful enough. And yeah, I think he is over pushing it somewhat. So, but that game can go any way. They are already playing 90 moves so they are certainly very, very tired in this moment.
Yeah, and in those moments, anything can happen, as we've seen in this game between Vantika Agrawal and Zheng Chongsheng. But yeah, that is chess, and we will be back with more drama tomorrow. Tomorrow we have double round, so the drama will be even 2 times more intense. Tomorrow we'll be back at 11 local time. The round is going to start. We'll be back after 1 hour later with you, and the second round will be at 5 local time. So again, the broadcast starts a bit after the start of the game, so make sure to stay tuned. As you see, so many turnarounds are happening here, so many exciting games, nice attacks as well. We have also very unclear situation among the leaders, because first and second seed lost their points today, third seed already yesterday. So among the leaders now we have a little bit less maybe known names, but they performed amazingly well, showing positional understanding, great tactical chess. So yeah, more action coming tomorrow.
Yeah, so thank you for watching and see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. See you.